Dominic Varelli built his empire on fear, blood, and contracts signed in shadows. He never lost control, until the night his new wife flinched at his touch. The marriage was supposed to be simple: sign the papers, secure the alliance, claim what was his. But Serafina Vale wasn't the calculated partner he expected. She was terrified, innocent, sacrificed like a lamb to wolves. When Dominic realized the truth, he faced an impossible choice: take what the contract promised, or walk away from everything he believed about power. That decision would unravel them both. If you want to see how their story ends, stick around until the final word. And hey, drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. Well, the Armory Club sat in Lower Manhattan like a bruise that wouldn't heal, all red velvet and dark wood, the kind of place where men made deals that never saw daylight. Dominic Varelli stood at the bar, whiskey untouched, watching the room with eyes that missed nothing. He'd owned this place for 6 years, owned most of the people in it longer than that. "You look tense." Marcus Chen appeared at his elbow, Dominic's oldest friend and the closest thing he had to a conscience. "Big night. It's a signature on paper." Dominic's voice carried no inflection. "Same as any other deal. Except this one comes with a wife." Dominic didn't respond. The marriage contract had taken 3 months to negotiate. The Vale family controlled shipping routes through 5 major ports, routes Dominic needed to expand his operations without interference. Aldo Vale had been bleeding money for years, desperate enough to offer his daughter as collateral. It was practical, strategic. Marcus studied him. "You ever met her, Serafina?" "Once. 2 years ago at some charity thing." Dominic tried to recall details and came up with nothing substantial. "She barely spoke." "And you're marrying her anyway?" "I'm securing an alliance. The girl's just part of the package." The words sounded hollow even to his own ears, but Dominic had built his life on such calculations. Emotion was weakness. Attachment was leverage waiting to be exploited. He'd learned that lesson young, beaten into him by a father who saw children as investments and love as a liability. The door opened. Aldo Valle entered, flanked by 2 men Dominic recognized as his inner circle, both aging, both desperate. Aldo himself looked worse than the last time they'd met, his expensive suit hanging loose on a frame that had shed weight from stress. "Varelli." Aldo's handshake was too firm, trying to project confidence he didn't possess. "Everything's ready. Serafina's upstairs with her mother." "The contracts." "Signed this morning. My lawyers confirmed everything's in order." Aldo's smile didn't reach his eyes. "You'll have full access to the shipping routes within 48 hours. And Serafina, well, she understands her duty." Something in that last sentence made Dominic pause, but he pushed the feeling aside. "Then we're done here." "Not quite." Aldo gestured toward the private elevator. "The ceremony's in 20 minutes. Small gathering, like we agreed. Just family and essential witnesses." Dominic nodded. He'd insisted on small. The less fanfare, the less it felt like anything other than business. The elevator rose in silence. When the doors opened, Dominic stepped into a room he barely recognized. Someone had transformed the top floor of the Armory into a mockery of romance. White flowers, soft lighting, chairs arranged in neat rows. A handful of people stood scattered throughout, their conversations dying as Dominic entered. He recognized a few faces. Victor, his head of security, standing near the windows. His Aunt Teresa, the only family member he maintained contact with, watching him with something like pity. The rest were Vale's people, relatives and associates who looked at Dominic with barely concealed fear. Good. Fear kept people predictable. An older woman approached, her resemblance to Aldo marking her as his wife. "Mr. Varelli, I'm Catherine Vale. We met once, briefly." "Mrs. Vale." Dominic's tone was formal, distant. "Serafina will be ready soon. She's just—" Catherine's hands twisted together. "She's nervous. This is all very sudden for her." "We all know what this is." Dominic kept his voice level. "I assume she's been informed of the expectations." Catherine flinched. "She knows her duty." There was that word again. Duty. It sat wrong in Dominic's chest, but he couldn't identify why. Marcus appeared with 2 glasses of champagne. For the happy couple, he said, his tone carefully neutral. He handed one to Dominic, who set it down untouched. Where's the officiant? Judge Morrison's here. Aldo called in a favor. Marcus lowered his voice. You sure about this? It's not too late to... It's done. Dominic cut him off. The papers are signed. Papers can be unsigned. Dominic turned to face his friend fully. Why are you pushing this? Because I've known you 20 years, and I've never seen you this cold about anything, and that's saying something. Marcus met his gaze steadily. This isn't like moving product or negotiating territory. This is a person. A person who agreed to the terms. Did she? Marcus asked quietly. Or did her father agree for her? Before Dominic could answer, the murmur of conversation shifted. He turned toward the small dressing room at the far end of the space, and his breath caught despite himself. Serafina Vale stood in the doorway, and she was nothing like he remembered. 2 years ago, she'd been background noise in a room full of background noise. Forgettable, unremarkable. Now she wore a simple white dress that should have been elegant, but instead seemed to swallow her whole. Her dark hair had been pulled back from a face so pale it looked translucent under the soft lights. But it was her eyes that stopped him. Terror, pure, undisguised terror. She wasn't looking at him with fear, she was looking at everything with fear. Her gaze darted around the room like a trapped animal searching for exits. Her hands gripped a small bouquet so tightly her knuckles had gone white. When Catherine approached to adjust her dress, Serafina flinched hard enough that everyone noticed. This wasn't nervousness, this was panic. Dominic felt something shift in his chest, some unnamed feeling that he immediately tried to suppress. This was the deal. The girl had known what she was agreeing to. Whatever terror she felt now was her problem to manage. But as Aldo took her arm to lead her down the makeshift aisle, Serafina stumbled. Her father's grip tightened, pulling her forward with more force than necessary, and Dominic saw her bite her lip hard enough to draw blood. She was shaking, visibly shaking. The ceremony began in a blur. Judge Morrison spoke words that Dominic had heard at a dozen weddings, making this farce sound legitimate. Dominic responded when required, his voice steady and emotionless. When the judge turned to Serafina, asking if she took Dominic as her husband, there was a pause that stretched too long. Her voice cracked. She tried again. I do. It sounded like surrender. The judge pronounced them married. Dominic was supposed to kiss her. Tradition demanded it. But when he leaned in, Serafina turned her face so sharply that his lips barely grazed her cheek. Her entire body had gone rigid. Applause scattered through the room, polite and perfunctory. Aldo looked relieved. Catherine looked devastated. Marcus looked like he wanted to say something but thought better of it. And Serafina looked like she was about to shatter into pieces. The reception was brief by design. Dominic had insisted on no dancing, no cake-cutting ceremony, none of the theatrical elements that made weddings into spectacles. What he got instead was an hour of forced conversation and champagne he didn't drink while Serafina sat in a chair against the wall, untouched and untouchable. He watched her from across the room. She hadn't moved in 20 minutes, hadn't spoken to anyone who approached her. Her mother had tried once, leaning in to whisper something that made Serafina's eyes fill with tears she wouldn't let fall. She's terrified of you. Victor had materialized at Dominic's shoulder, silent as always. She doesn't know me. Maybe that's why. Victor had been with Dominic for 15 years, long enough to speak freely. You know what they say about you on the streets. The stories. Stories aren't my concern. They are when your wife looks at you like you're going to kill her. Dominic's jaw tightened. She'll adjust. Will she? Victor's tone suggested doubt. Or will she just learn to be afraid quietly? Before Dominic could respond, Aldo appeared with a politician's smile and a drunk man's eyes. Well, Virelli, congratulations. I trust you'll take good care of my daughter. The way he said it, like Serafina was a car he'd just sold, made something dark unfurl in Dominic's chest. The shipping routes will transfer tomorrow. About that. Aldo's smile widened. I've prepared all the documentation. You'll have full operational control by noon, and Serafina, well, she comes with her own set of instructions. Instructions? She's been raised properly, knows how to run a household, how to entertain, how to... Aldo's voice dropped. How to fulfill her wifely duties without complaint. Her mother made sure of that. Dominic felt his hands curl into fists. We're done here. Of course, of course. Aldo clapped him on the shoulder with false bonhomie. I'll leave you two alone. I'm sure you're eager to get to know each other better. He walked away laughing, and Dominic wanted to put his fist through something. Boss. Victor's voice was low. Maybe give her time. This is a lot for anyone to... I know what this is. Dominic cut him off. But he didn't. Not really. He'd expected a partner who understood the game, who'd been raised in this world and knew its rules. Instead, he'd gotten a frightened girl who looked at him like he was a monster. Maybe he was. The reception wound down. Guests began to leave, offering congratulations that felt more like condolences. Marcus lingered longest, pulling Dominic aside near the exit. I'm going to say this once, and then I'll drop it. Marcus kept his voice low. That girl is terrified. Whatever you're planning for tonight, that's none of your concern. It is when I've known you long enough to see you make decisions you'll regret. Marcus held his gaze. You want the shipping routes? Fine. You got them. But don't destroy that girl just because you can. There are lines even we don't cross. Get out. Marcus left without another word. The room emptied until only Dominic, Serafina, and Victor remained. Victor took one look at the situation and made himself scarce, murmuring something about checking the perimeter security. Silence filled the space between them. Serafina hadn't moved from her chair. She stared at her hands, at the gold ring that now circled her finger, a ring Dominic had chosen without thought, just another detail to be handled. Her breathing was too fast, too shallow. Dominic approached slowly, the way you might approach something wild and wounded. We should go. She flinched at his voice but stood, moving like her legs barely supported her weight. She wouldn't look at him. Couldn't, maybe. His car waited downstairs, a black Mercedes that whispered money and power. Victor held the door. Serafina slid into the back seat, pressing herself against the far window as if she could melt through the glass and escape. Dominic got in beside her. The door closed with a heavy click that sounded too much like a cell locking. They drove through Manhattan in silence. The city lights flickered across Serafina's face, highlighting the tracks of tears she'd finally let fall. She'd given up trying to hide them. Given up on everything, it seemed. Serafina. She jumped at her name, her whole body going tense. Look at me. Slowly, so slowly, she turned her head. Her eyes met his for the first time since the ceremony. And what Dominic saw there made something in his chest constrict. She wasn't just afraid. She was resigned, like she'd already accepted whatever horror she believed was coming. I'm not going to hurt you. She didn't believe him. He could see it in every line of her face. Do you understand? I understand my duty. Her voice was barely a whisper, rough from suppressed crying. My mother explained everything. I know what's expected. The way she said it made Dominic's stomach turn. What exactly did your mother tell you? That I belong to you now. That I have to... She couldn't finish, her breath hitching. That I have to do whatever you want. That it's my job to please you. To not complain or resist. To be... Her voice broke completely. To be good. Rage, pure and unexpected, flooded through Dominic. Not at Serafina, at Aldo, at Catherine, at everyone who'd reduced this girl to a transaction and convinced her that her only value was obedience. They told you that you're property, aren't I? She looked at him with those terrified eyes. You paid for me. The marriage contract, my father showed me the terms. You get the shipping routes and you get me. In exchange for clearing his debts and protecting our family interests. That's the deal. Serafina, I'm not stupid, Mr. Varelli. Tears spilled down her cheeks freely now. I know what men like you do. I've heard the stories. I know what you are. And I know that I don't have a choice. So I'll do what I'm supposed to do. I'll be what you need me to be. Just please. Her voice dropped to something raw and broken. Please don't hurt me more than you have to. The car pulled up to Dominic's building, a converted warehouse in Tribeca that he'd transformed into a fortress of glass and steel. Normally he felt pride seeing it. Tonight it looked like a prison. Victor opened the door. Serafina stepped out on unsteady legs, and when Dominic touched her elbow to guide her, she jerked away so violently she nearly fell. They rode the private elevator to the penthouse in suffocating silence. Serafina stared at the floor, counting each second like a prisoner walking to execution. The elevator opened directly into his living space, an open floor plan of concrete and exposed brick, minimalist furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson. It was designed to impress, to intimidate. Looking at it through Serafina's eyes, Dominic saw only how cold it felt. She stood just inside the entrance, frozen. "The bedroom's through there," Dominic gestured to the hallway. "Your things were delivered this afternoon. They should be in the closet." She nodded without speaking. "Are you hungry? I can have food brought up." Another nod. No words. Dominic felt frustration building. He'd dealt with hostile negotiations, with men who wanted him dead, with situations that required split-second decisions with life or death consequences. None of it had prepared him for a terrified girl who looked at him like he was a monster, maybe because he was. "Serafina." He tried to gentle his voice, but it came out harsh anyway. "You need to eat something. You barely touched anything at the reception." "I'm not hungry." Her voice was hollow. "When did you last eat?" No answer. "Serafina." "Yesterday morning." The words came out flat. I felt sick since I found out about the wedding. Food just..." She wrapped her arms around herself. "It doesn't matter. I'm fine." She wasn't fine. She was trembling so hard her teeth were chattering despite the warmth of the room. Dominic moved toward her, and she backed up immediately, her shoulders hitting the wall. Panic flashed across her face. Real, visceral panic that made her look like she might bolt or collapse, or both. He stopped, raised his hand slowly, palms out. "I'm not going to touch you." "But you will." She was crying again, silent tears that she didn't bother wiping away. "Eventually." "That's the point of all this, isn't it? The marriage contract includes... It specifies..." She couldn't say it. "Consummation." Dominic finished for her and watched her flinch at the word. "That's what you think this is about, isn't it?" And there it was. The ugly truth neither of them had spoken. The marriage contract, in all its cold legal language, included provisions about heirs, about the continuation of bloodlines, about expectations that required intimacy whether either party wanted it or not. Dominic had barely registered those clauses when he signed. They were standard, archaic language that lawyers included out of habit. He'd assumed Serafina understood the game, that she'd come into this marriage the way women in their world usually did, with pragmatic acceptance and veiled ambition. He hadn't expected innocence, hadn't expected terror, hadn't expected to feel like a predator facing prey. "Go to the bedroom," he said finally. "Take a shower, change into something comfortable. I'll have food sent up." "And then?" Her voice was so small. "And then nothing. Just eat and sleep. That's all." She didn't believe him. "My mother said the first night is important, that we have to..." She was shaking harder now. "She said if I don't fulfill the contract terms, my father could lose everything, that you could void the agreement, that our whole family would be..." "Your mother is wrong." Dominic's voice came out harder than he intended. "Go to the bedroom, Serafina, now." She went, practically running, the door closing behind her with a soft click that somehow sounded like defeat. Dominic stood in his empty living room and wanted to destroy something. All of this, the contract, the marriage, the entire fucking situation, had seemed so simple on paper. Acquire the shipping routes, secure the alliance, marry the girl, move forward. He hadn't counted on the girl being real. His phone buzzed. "Marcus. How's married life?" The question was pointed. "Don't. That bad?" Dominic's moved to the windows, staring out at the city lights. "She's terrified of me. Actually terrified. She thinks I'm going to..." He couldn't finish. "Are you?" "Jesus, Marcus. I'm asking because you signed a contract that technically gives you the right to. And because I know how you operate. Everything's leverage, everything's strategy. So I'm asking, as your friend, what you're planning to do." Dominic closed his eyes. "I don't know. We'll figure it out fast, because that girl in there, she's not an asset or a business deal. She's a person. And if you treat her like property just because a contract says you can, you'll destroy her, and probably yourself in the process. Since when are you my conscience?" Since I watched you turn into someone I barely recognize over the past 5 years. You used to have lines you wouldn't cross, Dom. Make sure this isn't one of them." Marcus hung up. Dominic ordered food he knew Serafina wouldn't eat. When it arrived, he knocked softly on the bedroom door. No answer. "Serafina, I'm leaving food outside the door. You should eat something." Still nothing. He waited, listening to the silence, then walked away. An hour later, when he checked, the food sat untouched, growing cold. Dominic spent the night in his office, reviewing contracts and reports he'd already memorized. Anything to avoid thinking about the terrified girl sleeping, or not sleeping, in his bed. When dawn broke over the Hudson, he still hadn't found answers to questions he didn't want to ask. The penthouse was silent when he emerged. The bedroom door remained closed. The food he'd left was gone, though whether she'd eaten it or thrown it away, he couldn't tell. He had meetings all morning, calls with his lawyers about the shipping route transfers, a sit-down with Victor about security for a new acquisition, a tense negotiation with a supplier who thought he could skim product without consequences. Dominic handled it all with mechanical efficiency, his mind only half present. When he returned to the penthouse that evening, he found Serafina in the kitchen. She'd changed into jeans and an oversized sweater that made her look impossibly young. Her hair was loose, still damp from a shower. She was attempting to cook something, her movements uncertain and clumsy. "You don't have to do that." Dominic's voice made her jump, the knife she was holding clattering to the counter. "I have people who prepare meals." "I wanted to—" She didn't finish, just stared at the cutting board where she'd been trying to chop vegetables. "I thought I should. My mother said I should take care of the household. That it's my responsibility to—" "Your mother said a lot of things that aren't true." Serafina's hands twisted together. "I don't understand what you want from me." Dominic moved closer, and she backed up immediately, putting the kitchen island between them. Always retreating. Always afraid. "I want you to stop looking at me like I'm going to hurt you." "I'm trying." Her voice broke. "I'm really trying, but I don't know how to— I don't know what I'm supposed to—" She pressed her palms against her eyes. "I've never done any of this before. I don't know how to be a wife. I don't know how to be what you need, and I'm scared that I'll mess it up and you'll—" "I'll what?" "I don't know." The words burst out of her, raw and honest. "I don't know what you'll do if I disappoint you. Send me back? Hurt me? I don't know the rules here. I don't know anything except that I'm trapped and terrified and I can't breathe and—" She was hyperventilating, her breath coming in short gasps that made her sway on her feet. Dominic moved on instinct, reaching for her, and she jerked back so hard she hit the counter. "Don't touch me!" The scream tore out of her. "Please don't touch me! I can't! She slid down to the floor, her back against the cabinet, arms wrapped around her knees, gasping for air that wouldn't come. A full panic attack, her body shutting down from fear. Dominic stood frozen, watching her fall apart, feeling more helpless than he'd ever felt in his life. Every instinct screamed at him to fix this, to take control, to make it stop. But he couldn't fix what he'd caused, couldn't control fear this deep. "Serafina." He kept his voice low, steady. "Look at me. I need you to look at me." She couldn't. Her eyes were squeezed shut, tears streaming down her face, her whole body shaking. "I'm not going to touch you. I'm staying right here. You're safe. Do you understand? You're safe." "I'm not." The words came between gasping breaths. "I'll never be safe again. I belong to you now. My father sold me like I was nothing, and you bought me, and I have no choice. I have no way out. I can't breathe." Dominic lowered himself to the floor slowly, staying several feet away. "Just breathe. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Come on. With me." He demonstrated, exaggerating each breath, and after a moment she tried to follow. It took several minutes before her breathing steadied, before the panic receded enough for her to speak. "I'm sorry." She wouldn't look at him. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. I was supposed to stay calm. My mother said I had to stay calm and be good and not cause problems. But I can't. I just can't stop apologizing. But I—" "Serafina." He waited until she finally met his eyes. "What did they tell you about me? Specifically?" She bit her lip. "That you're dangerous. That you've killed people. That everyone in the city is afraid of you. That you get what you want no matter what it takes. That if I don't—" She stopped. "If you don't what?" If I don't keep you happy, you could destroy my whole family. That the contract gives you power over all of us now, that I'm responsible for making this work." Dominic felt rage building again, cold and focused. Aldo had done this, had taken his own daughter and weaponized her fear to ensure compliance, had convinced her that her only value was obedience, that her only purpose was to satisfy a monster's demands. "Your family used you." The words came out harsh. "They put you in an impossible situation and told you it was your duty. They made you believe that you have to sacrifice yourself to save them. That's not protection, Serafina. That's cowardice." "They didn't have a choice. We were losing everything. My father's debts, the legal problems, the threats from—" She stopped, seeming to realize she was saying too much. "From who?" She shook her head. "Serafina. Who was threatening your family?" "It doesn't matter now. You own the shipping routes. You have the power to protect us from anyone who—" Again, she stopped herself. Dominic felt pieces clicking into place, a picture forming that he didn't like. Your father wasn't just in debt. He'd made enemies. People who were coming for him. And instead of facing them himself, he used you as a shield. He was trying to save us. He was saving himself. Don't. Her voice shook. Don't say that. He's still my father. He's still... She couldn't finish because they both knew the truth. Aldo Valle had sacrificed his daughter to save his own skin, had dressed it up as duty and family honor, had convinced her it was love. How old are you? Dominic asked suddenly. 22. And he's been planning this for how long? I don't know, a few months, maybe longer. I only found out 2 weeks ago. She pulled her knees tighter to her chest. I came home and my mother sat me down and explained everything. The debts, the threats, the marriage contract. She said it was the only way, that I had to do this for the family, that it was my responsibility as the oldest daughter. You have siblings, 2 younger sisters, still in school. Something shifted in her expression, fierce protectiveness breaking through the fear. They can't know about any of this. They think I'm getting married because I want to, because it's... She laughed bitterly. Because it's romantic. What do they know about me? Nothing real, just that you're successful, powerful. My mother made you sound almost respectable. Serafina wiped at her tears with the sleeve of her sweater. They don't know what you actually do, what you actually are. And what am I? She looked at him then, really looked at him, and Dominic saw himself through her eyes. A man who built empires on violence, who took what he wanted, who inspired fear in everyone he encountered. A man who'd married a terrified girl because she came with shipping routes he needed. I don't know, she whispered. That's what scares me most. I don't know what you are, or what you want, or what you'll do to me. I only know I can't escape. The words hung between them, brutal in their honesty. Dominic stood slowly, carefully, telegraphing every movement. Get up! Terror flashed across her face, but she obeyed, rising on shaking legs. Go back to the bedroom. Please. Go to the bedroom, Serafina. Lock the door. I'm sleeping in the guest room tonight. He pulled out his phone. I'm ordering food. Real food, not whatever you were trying to make. When it arrives, I'll leave it outside your door. You're going to eat it. All of it. And then you're going to sleep. That's all. No expectations, no contracts, no duties, just sleep. Do you understand? She nodded, not quite believing him. In the morning, we're going to talk, really talk, about what this arrangement actually is, what you can expect from me, what the rules are. But tonight, you're just going to rest. He paused. Can you do that? I think so. Good. Now go. She went. And this time when the door closed, it didn't sound like defeat. It sounded like mercy. Dominic ordered enough food for 3 people, all comfort items he hoped might actually appeal to her. When it arrived, he knocked once and left it outside the bedroom door as promised. He heard her emerge 20 minutes later, heard the soft sound of containers being opened. An hour after that, he checked. The food was gone. Small victory. He spent the night in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what the hell he was doing. The contract was signed. The shipping routes were transferring. He'd gotten what he wanted. Except he hadn't. Not really. Because what he'd actually gotten was a terrified girl who'd been sold to save a coward's skin, a situation that made him feel more like a villain than any of the actual crimes he'd committed, and a marriage that felt less like an alliance and more like a cage. And somewhere in the darkness, in his own bedroom, Serafina was probably lying awake too, counting the hours until she'd have to face him again, convinced that mercy was just another form of cruelty waiting to reveal itself. Dominic had built his empire on reading people, on understanding leverage, on knowing exactly how to get what he wanted. But he'd never wanted to be someone's nightmare, never wanted to be the monster a frightened girl saw when she closed her eyes. The question was, could he be anything else? Or was this who he'd become? Someone so steeped in violence and power that even kindness looked like a threat? He didn't have answers, just questions that multiplied in the dark, and the growing certainty that the contract he'd signed had bought him something he'd never wanted, a person's fear, complete and paralyzing. And for the first time in his carefully constructed life, Dominic Varelli didn't know what to do with power once he had it. Morning came too early and not early enough. Dominic had managed maybe 2 hours of sleep, his mind churning through possibilities and problems until the sky turned gray. He found himself standing in the kitchen at 6, making coffee he didn't want, listening to the silence of the penthouse and wondering if Serafina had slept at all. The bedroom door opened at 7:30. She emerged wearing different clothes, dark jeans, a plain sweater, her hair pulled back. She looked exhausted, dark circles under eyes that were still red from crying. But she'd washed her face, composed herself into something that resembled calm. "Good morning." Her voice was quiet, formal. "Morning." Dominic gestured to the coffee. "Want some?" She shook her head, then seemed to reconsider. "Actually, yes, please." He poured her a cup, black, and watched as she added cream and sugar with shaking hands. She wouldn't look at him directly, her gaze settling somewhere around his shoulder. "Did you eat last night?" "Yes. Thank you." She took a sip of coffee, winced at the heat. "It was more than I could finish." "But you ate some." "Most of it, actually. I was hungrier than I thought." They stood in the kitchen, the island between them like a demilitarized zone. Outside, the city was waking up, traffic sounds, construction noise, the ambient hum of millions of lives being lived. Inside, the silence pressed down like weight. "We need to talk." Dominic set his cup down. "Really talk. Not the conversation we had last night. Not whatever your parents told you to expect. Actual honesty." Serafina's grip tightened on her mug. "Okay." "Sit down." She did, choosing the chair farthest from him. Always distance, always escape routes. Dominic stayed standing, mainly because he couldn't figure out what to do with his hands. "I'm going to ask you questions and I need you to answer them truthfully. Can you do that?" "I'll try." "Did you want this marriage?" The question seemed to catch her off guard. "Want?" "Yes, want. Did you choose this or were you forced into it?" She looked down at her coffee. "Does it matter? I'm here now. The contract's signed." "It matters." "Answer the question." "No." The word came out small and defeated. "I didn't want this. I didn't want any of this." "Did your father give you a choice?" He explained the situation, the debts, the threats. He said this was the only way to save the family, to protect my sisters. He made it sound like... She stopped, choosing words carefully. "Like I was being selfish if I refused." "And your mother?" Serafina's laugh was bitter. "My mother told me what to expect, how to behave, what you'd want from me. She was very detailed about my duties as a wife." She finally looked up at him. "She made it clear that everything depended on me keeping you satisfied, that if I failed, everyone would suffer." Dominic felt anger rising again, cold and focused. "Your parents sold you and then blamed you for the transaction. They were desperate. They were cowards. Stop saying that." Her voice shook. "They're still my family. They sacrificed you to save themselves." Dominic leaned against the counter. "That's not love, Serafina. That's using you as a human shield. What would you know about love?" The words burst out before she could stop them. Her hand flew to her mouth. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. You're right. I don't know much about love." He kept his tone even. "But I know exploitation when I see it. And I know your father used his own daughter as collateral because he was too weak to face his own mistakes." Serafina stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You don't understand. You can't understand what it's like to watch your family falling apart, to see your father being threatened, to know that people want to hurt the people you love. When he told me I could fix it, that I could save everyone by just doing this one thing, what was I supposed to say? No? Let them all suffer because I was too scared? Yes. Dominic's answer was immediate. You were supposed to say no. You were supposed to tell your father to handle his own problems instead of making them yours. Easy for you to say, you have power. You have choices. She gestured helplessly. I had duty, responsibility, 2 sisters who needed protection and a family that needed saving. What kind of person would I be if I walked away? A person who valued her own life. My life isn't worth more than theirs. The statement hung in the air, stark and revealing. Dominic studied her. This girl who'd been taught that her worth was measured in sacrifice, that love meant erasure, that being good meant disappearing. Who told you that? No one had to tell me. It's just, she wrapped her arms around herself. It's just true. My sisters are still young. They have futures ahead of them. And my parents, for all their mistakes, they're still my parents. They needed help, and I could provide it. That's all this is. That's not all this is. Dominic moved closer, and she backed up immediately. He stopped, raising his hands. I'm not going to touch you, but listen to me. Your father made bad deals with dangerous people. Instead of facing consequences, he found a way to trade you for protection and profit. The shipping routes alone are worth millions. Add in the alliance, the territorial advantages, the connections to his networks. He didn't just save himself, Serafina. He got rich off selling you. She flinched like he'd struck her. That's not... He wouldn't he? The contract's transferred yesterday. Do you know what your father netted from this deal? Beyond the debt forgiveness and protection? I don't want to know. $3 million, cash, plus percentage points on all future shipping revenue through his ports. Dominic watched her face pale. He sold you for $3 million and a steady income stream. That's not desperation. That's business. Serafina sank back into her chair, her legs seeming to give out. No, he said it was just about protection, just about keeping us safe. He lied. You're lying. Dominic pulled out his phone, pulled up the contract files, and slid it across the table to her. Read it yourself, page 14, section 7. Payment terms. She stared at the phone like it might bite her. Then, slowly, she picked it up. Her eyes scanned the text, and Dominic watched the moment she found it, the moment reality shattered whatever illusions she'd been clinging to. Her face crumpled. Oh. The word was barely audible. Oh no. I'm sorry. Don't. She pushed the phone back toward him. Don't apologize. You just showed me who my father really is. That's not something to be sorry for. But she was crying again, silent tears that she didn't try to hide. Not the terror of last night. This was grief, raw and fresh, the death of something she'd needed to believe. He sold me. She said it out loud, testing the words. He actually sold me, like I was property, like I was nothing. You're not nothing. She laughed, sharp and broken. Aren't I? My own father put a price tag on me and found a buyer. That's the literal definition of nothing. Dominic wanted to argue, but what could he say? She was right. Aldo had commodified his own daughter, had reduced her to an asset to be traded, and Dominic had been the one to make the trade. I didn't know. The words felt inadequate. When I signed the contract, I assumed you were part of the deal because you wanted to be, that you understood what this was. A business arrangement. Yes. And now? Now I know better. Dominic sat down across from her, maintaining distance. I know you were forced into this. I know you're terrified. I know your father is a piece of shit who deserves worse than what I'll probably give him, and I know that none of this is your fault. But the contract still stands. The contract can be voided. Her head snapped up. What? I can dissolve it, return you to your family, keep the shipping routes as breach of contract compensation. Your father would lose the $3 million, but you'd be free. Hope flared in her eyes, bright and desperate. Then it died. My sisters, what about them? The people threatening my father, they don't care about contracts. If I leave, if this arrangement falls apart, they'll go after my family again. My sisters could be... She couldn't finish. At least this way with you, they're protected. You have the power to keep them safe. You'd stay in a marriage you don't want to protect siblings. Your father should be protecting himself. They're 8 and 10 years old. They don't deserve to suffer because our father's a coward. She wiped at her tears angrily. So, yes, I'll stay. I'll do whatever the contract requires. I'll be whatever you need me to be. Just please keep them safe. Dominic felt something shift in his chest, some recognition of the impossible position she was in. She couldn't leave without abandoning her sisters, couldn't stay without destroying herself. Trapped between loyalty and survival with no good options. What if there was a third choice? There isn't. What if you stayed, but the terms changed? Serafina looked at him warily. Changed how? We stay married on paper. I maintain protection for your family, keep your sisters safe, make sure your father's enemies stay away. But between us, the expectations change. I don't understand. Dominic chose his words carefully. The contract says we're married. It doesn't say you have to be terrified of me. It doesn't say you have to sacrifice yourself. We can make this arrangement into something bearable. Bearable? She tested the word. What does that mean? It means I'm not going to force you into anything. Not intimacy, not performance, not whatever duties your mother told you about. You live here, we maintain appearances when necessary, and your family stays protected. But behind closed doors, you're free. Free. The word sounded foreign in her mouth. I don't believe you. I know. You shouldn't. Not yet. But I'm offering anyway. She studied him for a long moment, trying to find the trap. Why would you do that? What do you get out of it? The shipping routes, the alliance, strategic advantages. He paused. And maybe the ability to sleep at night. You don't strike me as someone who loses sleep over his decisions. I didn't used to be. But watching you fall apart last night because you thought I was going to... He stopped. Let's just say it wasn't my finest moment. You felt guilty. I felt like a monster. Maybe you are one. There was no venom in her voice, just observation. Maybe we're both just trying to survive in a situation neither of us wanted. Maybe. They sat in silence, the morning light getting stronger through the windows. Somewhere in the building, someone was playing music, the bass line vibrating through the walls. Normal life, happening all around them while they negotiated the terms of captivity. I need guarantees. Serafina's voice was stronger now, less shaky. If I'm staying, if I'm doing this, I need to know my sisters are actually safe. Not just promised safety, actual protection. Done. I'll assign security to them. Discreet, but effective. And my father's debts? The threats? Already handled. As of yesterday, your father's creditors answer to me. Anyone who comes after him comes after me. Dominic leaned forward. Your sisters are untouchable now. Your family has my protection whether your father deserves it or not. What about the $3 million he got? What about it? Can you take it back? Make him return it? Dominic raised an eyebrow. Why would you want that? Because I don't want him profiting off this. I don't want him to think he made a good deal. Her voice went hard. I want him to understand what he did, what he cost me. There was steel underneath the fear, Dominic realized. A spine she'd been taught to hide but hadn't lost. I can make that happen. But it might make things difficult for your family financially. Good. Let him struggle. Let him feel what desperation actually looks like instead of using me as a solution. She met Dominic's eyes directly for the first time. I'll sacrifice myself for my sisters, but I won't let my father profit from it. Consider it done. Oh, just like that? Just like that. Dominic pulled out his phone, typed a message to his lawyers. By end of business today, the $3 million gets reclassified as a loan with aggressive terms. He'll wish he never took it. Something that might have been satisfaction crossed Serafina's face. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm still the one who signed the contract that put you here. But you're also the one offering to make it bearable. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, seeking warmth. That's something. Maybe not enough, but something. They fell into silence again, but it felt different now, less hostile, still wary, still careful, but with the beginning of something that wasn't fear. I have questions. Serafina's voice was quiet. About you. About this life. About what I'm actually part of now. Ask. The things people say about you, are they true? Depends what they say. That you've killed people, that you run criminal operations, that you're dangerous. Dominic considered lying, spinning some version of himself that would be easier to live with. But she'd asked for honesty, and he'd promised it. Yes, all of that is true. She absorbed this without flinching. How many people? How many have I killed? Yes. Do you really want to know? I'm living with you, married to you. I think I deserve to know who I'm married to. Fair point. I stopped counting after the first few. Some were self-defense, some were business, some were... He trailed off. Some were because I could, because I was angry, or because someone needed to be taught a lesson, or because it was easier than the alternative. Do you regret it? The question caught him off guard. Some of them. The ones who probably didn't deserve it. The ones who were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But not all of them. No, not all of them. Some people needed killing, still do. Serafina was quiet for a moment. My father said you were ruthless, that you built your empire on fear and violence. He made it sound almost admirable, like it was strength. It's not strength, it's survival that went too far. What does that mean? Dominic stood, moved to the window, putting distance between them. I grew up in a house where weakness got you beaten, where showing emotion meant giving someone leverage to use against you, where the only way to survive was to be harder, meaner, more willing to do terrible things than everyone around you. So that's what I became. And it worked. I survived, built something, made myself into someone people feared instead of someone who got hurt. But somewhere along the way, survival turned into empire building. Fear turned into power. And I stopped asking whether I should do something and started just doing it. Because I could. Because no one could stop me. He turned to face her. Your father was right. I am ruthless. I am dangerous. And I've done things that would make you run if you had anywhere to run to. I'm not running. You should be. But I'm not. She stood, moved closer to the window, though still maintaining several feet of distance. Do you want to know what I think? What? I think you're telling me all of this to scare me, to make me understand how dangerous you are, so I'll... What? Be more afraid? Be more careful? Understand my place? She shook her head. But here's the thing. I'm already terrified. You can't make it worse. So maybe just tell me the truth without the performance. Tell me who you actually are instead of who you want me to think you are. Dominic stared at her. This girl who'd been shaking so hard last night she could barely stand, now calling him out with unexpected clarity. You're smarter than I gave you credit for. My father treated me like I was stupid, ornamental, useful only for what I could provide. But I'm not stupid. I've been paying attention my whole life, watching, learning. She hugged herself. So don't treat me like I'm fragile or naive. I know what you are. I know what this world is. I'm just trying to figure out how to survive in it. Fair enough. Dominic returned to the table, sat down. Truth then, no performance. I built my empire on violence and fear because that's what I knew how to do. I'm good at it, better than I should be, and I don't regret most of it because the world I operate in doesn't reward mercy. But you're showing me mercy. Am I? Or am I just avoiding adding you to the list of people I've destroyed? Does it matter which one it is? I don't know. And that was the truth. Dominic didn't know why Serafina's terror had affected him when nothing else did. Didn't know why her fear felt different than the fear he saw in business rivals or enemies or people who owed him money. Didn't know why the idea of forcing her into anything made him feel like he was crossing a line he couldn't uncross. They sat across from each other, two people trapped in a situation neither wanted, trying to find a way to make it survivable. What happens now? Serafina asked finally. Now we figure out how to live together without destroying each other. That's it? That's the plan? That's the start of the plan. The rest we make up as we go. She almost smiled. Almost. You don't strike me as someone who makes things up as you go. I don't usually have to. Most situations I can control. This, he gestured between them. This is new territory for both of us. Yeah. The silence that followed felt different. Not comfortable. Not yet. But not hostile either. Just two people beginning to see each other as actual people instead of roles in a transaction. I need to go out. Dominic stood. Business I can't postpone. Victor will be here. If you need anything, tell him. Victor, you're head of security. Yes, he looks intimidating, but he's... Dominic paused. He's actually decent. You'll be safe with him. Safe. She said the word like she was still learning what it meant. Okay. There's food in the kitchen. Help yourself to anything. The TV works. There are books in the office. The gym's on the second floor if you want it. This is your space now, too. My space. She looked around the penthouse like she was seeing it for the first time. I don't know what to do with space. What do you mean? I've spent my whole life in my father's house, following my mother's rules, being who they needed me to be. I've never had space that was just mine, never had time that wasn't scheduled or supervised or controlled. She met his eyes. I don't know how to just be, without someone telling me what I'm supposed to do. The admission gutted him in ways he didn't expect. Then learn. You've got time now, nothing but time. And when you come back? When I come back, we have dinner, we talk. We keep figuring this out. He moved toward the door, then stopped. Serafina, I meant what I said last night. I'm not going to hurt you. Not physically, not sexually, not in any way. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Honestly, I'm still figuring that out. He left before she could respond, the elevator doors closing on her uncertain face. As he descended toward the lobby, Dominic felt the weight of what he'd committed to settling on his shoulders. He'd made promises he wasn't sure he could keep, offered mercy he didn't know if he possessed, tried to be someone he'd never been before. Victor was waiting in the lobby, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. How'd it go? She knows about the money, about what her father did. How'd she take it? Better than I expected. Worse than she should have to. Dominic headed for the exit. She's upstairs alone. Keep an eye on her. Don't hover, but make sure she's okay. You think she might try to run? I think she might try to disappear in other ways. Just check on her. Carefully. Victor nodded, understanding. Where are we going? To have a conversation with Aldo Val. Finally. Victor's smile was cold. Want me to bring tools? Not yet. This is just a conversation, but make sure he knows what happens if we need to have another one. They drove across the city through neighborhoods that shifted from wealth to working class and back again. Aldo's office was in Midtown, a building that screamed old money trying to maintain appearances. Dominic had been here once before, during the contract negotiations. Then, Aldo had been all smiles and smooth words. Today would be different. They rode the elevator to the 14th floor. Aldo's secretary, a nervous woman in her 50s, tried to stop them, but one look from Victor had her stepping aside. Aldo was on the phone when they entered, laughing about something. The laughter died when he saw Dominic. I'll call you back. He hung up quickly. Varelli, this is unexpected. I thought the contract terms were all settled. They are. We're renegotiating different terms. Dominic sat without being invited. Victor closed the door and stood in front of it. I don't understand. The $3 million you netted from selling your daughter, we're taking it back. Aldo's face went pale, then red. That's not possible. That money was part of the agreement. You can't just... I can do whatever I want. The question is whether you make this easy or hard. The contract gave you the money. It didn't guarantee you'd keep it. Dominic leaned back in his chair, completely relaxed. Consider it a loan now. With interest. Very high interest. This is extortion. No, this is business. Extortion would be if I threatened your life to get the money. I'm just informing you of new terms. Aldo stood, tried to project authority he didn't have. I could fight this, take you to court. The contract is legally binding. You could try, but ask yourself, do you really want to go to war with me over money you got from selling your daughter like livestock? Dominic's voice went cold. Because I promise you, Aldo, that's not a war you'll win. or survive. The threat hung in the air, unmistakable. Aldo sat back down, deflating. Why are you doing this? The deal was made. Serafina agreed. Everything was settled. Serafina didn't agree. She was coerced. There's a difference. She had a choice. She had the illusion of choice. That's not the same thing. Dominic leaned forward. You used your own daughter as a bargaining chip and convinced her it was duty. You scared her into compliance by threatening her sister's safety. You made her believe she was saving the family when really you were just saving yourself. And then you profited off it. I did what I had to do. No. You did what was easiest. What kept you from facing consequences for your own mistakes. Dominic stood. The money's gone. My lawyers will contact yours about the loan terms. You'll pay it back over the next 10 years with interest that will make you regret every dollar you spent. I don't have that kind of cash flow anymore. The shipping routes are yours now. Then I guess you'll have to figure something out. Get creative. Isn't that what you told Serafina when you sold her? That desperate times require sacrifice? Dominic moved toward the door. Now you get to understand what that actually means. Wait, Aldo's voice cracked. My daughters, the younger ones, the protection you promised, is still in place. Unlike you, I don't punish children for their father's sins. Dominic paused at the door. But understand this. Your protection extends only as far as your daughters. You step out of line, you cause problems. You come anywhere near Serafina without my permission, and we have a very different conversation. She's my daughter. She was your daughter. Now she's my wife. And unlike you, I actually plan to treat her like she matters. He left Aldo sitting in his office, the man's face a mixture of rage and fear and something that might have been shame. Victor followed, silent until they reached the elevator. Feel better? Not really. Dominic pressed the button for the lobby. But it needed to be done. What are you going to do with her? Serafina. I don't know. You like her. I barely know her. But you like her, or at least you don't want to hurt her, which for you is basically the same thing. Dominic didn't answer because Victor was right. Something about Serafina had gotten under his skin, made him question things he'd never questioned before, made him want to be someone different than who he was. The question was whether different was possible, whether a man who'd built his life on violence and fear could become someone a terrified girl might eventually trust. He didn't have answers, just questions that grew more complicated every time Serafina looked at him with those haunted eyes, every time she flinched away from his touch, every time she tried to be brave despite being terrified. When Dominic returned to the penthouse that evening, he found Serafina in the kitchen again. This time she'd actually managed to cook something, pasta with what looked like marinara from a jar, a salad that was more effort than skill. She stood at the stove, her back to him, and for a moment he just watched her move through the space like she was testing its boundaries. Smells good! She jumped, spinning around with the wooden spoon held like a weapon. When she saw it was him, her shoulders dropped, but the tension didn't fully leave her face. I made dinner. I wasn't sure when you'd be back, so She gestured at the pot. There's enough for two, if you want. You didn't have to do that. I needed something to do with my hands. Victor showed me where everything was. She turned back to the stove, stirring unnecessarily. He's actually kind of nice, for someone who looks like he could snap a person in half. He has his moments. Dominic loosened his tie, felt the weight of the day settling into his bones. What did you two talk about? Books, mostly. He noticed me looking at your shelves and started recommending things. I didn't expect him to be so well read. Most people don't. They see the scars and the size and assume that's all there is. Serafina set the spoon down, started plating food with careful movements. Is that what people do to you too? See the violence and assume that's everything? The question caught him off guard. I don't usually care what people assume, but sometimes you do. She handed him a plate, still not quite meeting his eyes. Otherwise, you wouldn't have bothered telling me about the money, about my father. You would have just let me believe what I wanted to believe. Maybe I just wanted you to know what kind of man your father is. Or maybe you wanted me to know what kind of man you're trying to be. She finally looked at him directly. Which is it? Dominic took the plate, moved to the table. I don't know yet. They ate in silence for a while, the pasta mediocre but edible, the effort behind it meaning more than the result. Outside, the sun was setting over the Hudson, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that made the whole penthouse glow. "I called my mother today." Serafina's voice was quiet. "Use the phone in your office. I hope that's okay. It's your phone too now. You don't need permission. Old habits." She pushed pasta around her plate. "Anyway, I called her. Told her I was settling in, that everything was fine." "What did she say?" "She asked if I was fulfilling my duties, if I was keeping you happy, if I'd—" Serafina's voice caught. "If I'd done what she'd told me to do, what was expected on the wedding night." Dominic set his fork down. "What did you tell her?" "I lied. Said everything was exactly as she'd prepared me for, that I was being a good wife." She looked up, and her eyes were wet but angry. "I couldn't tell her the truth. Couldn't admit that my husband is showing me more mercy than my own mother did. That the man I was supposed to be terrified of is the only person who's asked me what I actually want. Serafina, she sold me too, you know. She keeps saying it was for the family, that it was duty, but she took my father's side. Convinced me this was the right thing, the only thing, and the whole time she was preparing me to be—" She stopped, swallowed hard. "To be used. That's what all those talks were about. How to endure, how to make myself small and quiet and compliant, how to survive being treated like property. I'm sorry. Don't be. You're not the one who did this to me. You're just the one who ended up with me." She stood abruptly, started clearing plates even though Dominic wasn't finished. "My mother asked when I'd be coming to visit, bringing my new husband to meet the family properly. She wants to show me off. Proof that the sacrifice worked. You don't have to go." "Yes, I do. My sisters are there. I need to see them. Make sure they're actually okay." She ran water in the sink, her movements sharp and agitated. "Besides, don't you want to collect on your investment? Show the family that you own their daughter now? Isn't that how this works? That's not what this is. Isn't it? You married me to get shipping routes and territorial advantage. The fact that you're being decent about it doesn't change the fundamental transaction." She scrubbed at a plate that was already clean. "I'm still the thing you bought, still the price my father was willing to pay." Dominic stood, moved closer but didn't touch her. "You're angry." "Of course I'm angry. I'm furious. She slammed the plate down hard enough that it cracked. "I'm so angry I can barely breathe. At my father for selling me, at my mother for helping him, at myself for being too weak to say no, at you for being part of this whole terrible situation, even if you're trying to make it better. At everyone and everything, and I don't know what to do with it. So be angry. Break things if you need to." She looked at the cracked plate, then at him. "You mean that?" "Yes, this is your space too. If you need to destroy something to feel better, destroy it. I've got money for new plates." "That's insane." "Probably, but it's better than keeping it all inside until it poisons you." Serafina stared at him for a long moment, something shifting behind her eyes. Then she picked up the cracked plate and threw it against the wall. It shattered with a satisfying crash, pieces scattering across the floor. She stood there breathing hard, looking shocked at herself. Then she started laughing, this wild, broken sound that was half sob. "Oh my God, I just threw a plate." "Feel better?" "Actually, yes. That was—" She laughed again, wiping at her eyes. "That was kind of amazing." "Want to throw another one?" "No, maybe. I don't know." She slid down to the floor, sitting among the broken pieces. "I've never broken anything on purpose before. Never let myself be angry like that. It was always just swallow it down. Be good. Don't make waves." Dominic grabbed a broom, started sweeping up the mess. "You can make waves here. You can be angry. You can break every plate in the kitchen if it helps." "You really mean that?" "Yes." She watched him sweep, this strange domestic moment in the middle of chaos. "Why are you being so nice to me?" "I'm not nice. Ask anyone who knows me." "But you are. To me. Why?" Dominic dumped the broken plate in the trash, leaned against the counter. "Honestly, I don't know. Maybe because watching you suffer feels worse than any business I've ever done. Maybe because I'm tired of being the monster everyone thinks I am. Or maybe I just recognize that you got dealt a terrible hand and the least I can do is not make it worse. Those are all very logical reasons." "What do you want me to say?" That I care about you? We've known each other for 2 days. But you do care. A little bit. Otherwise, none of this would matter. She was right, and that realization unsettled something in Dominic's chest. He'd spent 20 years carefully not caring about people, treating relationships as transactions, keeping everyone at arm's length. And now this girl he'd married for shipping routes was making him feel things he'd successfully avoided feeling. We should set some ground rules. He changed the subject. Things you're comfortable with, things you're not. Boundaries. Serafina pulled her knees to her chest. Like what? Like touch. I know you don't want me touching you. That's fine. But what about in public? If we need to maintain appearances, can I put my hand on your back? Hold your hand? She considered. If you warn me first, if I know it's coming and it's just for show, I can handle it. But don't surprise me. And nothing more than that. No kissing, no anything else. Agreed. What about living arrangements? Do you want your own bedroom? Would that be okay? It's your choice. Then yes. I'd like my own space, somewhere I can close the door and know I'm alone. Done. There are 3 other bedrooms. Pick whichever one you want, and I'll have your things moved. She blinked. Just like that? Just like that. What else? I want to work. Or volunteer. Something. I can't just sit here all day waiting for you to come home like some kind of... She struggled for the word. Like some kind of kept thing. What do you want to do? I don't know. I never got to think about it before. My parents expected me to marry well and manage a household. That was the plan. She laughed bitterly. Guess they got their wish on the marry well part. Financially speaking, anyway. What were you studying before all this? Education. I wanted to be a teacher. Elementary school kids. Her face softened. I love kids. Their honesty, their curiosity, the way they see the world before everyone tells them how it's supposed to be. So teach. I don't have my degree. I had to drop out when my father's money problems started. Couldn't afford the tuition. You can afford it now. Finish school, get your degree, or volunteer at schools while you figure out what you want. Dominic pulled out his phone. I'll have my assistant set up meetings with some education programs. See what fits. You're serious? Why wouldn't I be? You said you wanted to work. So work. Your life doesn't stop just because you're married to me. Serafina stared at him like he'd grown a second head. Do you know how insane this is? My father sells me to a crime boss, and the crime boss turns out to be, what, progressive about women's education? I'm practical about people being useful. You sitting here going crazy helps no one. You doing something you actually care about? That's better for everyone. You're the strangest, dangerous man I've ever met. You've met a lot of dangerous men? Just you, and my father, I guess. Though his danger is more the passive-aggressive destroy-your-life kind than the break-your-bones kind. Both types leave scars, Yeah. She stood, brushed off her jeans. Can I ask you something personal? You can ask. I might not answer. Do you have family? People you care about? Dominic thought about his Aunt Teresa, the only relative who'd bothered showing up to the wedding. One aunt. We talk maybe twice a year. That's it. Parents? Dead, both of them. My father when I was 19. My mother a few years later. I'm sorry. Don't be. My father was a mean drunk who used his fists more than his words. My mother enabled him. I didn't lose much when they died. Serafina moved closer, and for the first time she initiated the proximity. Is that why you understand? Why you're trying to be different with me? Maybe. I know what it's like to be powerless, to have someone else control every aspect of your life, to be afraid in your own home. He met her eyes. I swore when I got out of that house that I'd never be powerless again, never let anyone have that kind of hold on me. And now you have that hold on me. Yes, which is why I'm trying not to use it. Trying, but you could, if you wanted. I could. There was no point lying about it. The contract gives me a lot of legal authority over you. Your father made sure of that. Would you? If I made you angry enough, if I disappointed you, would you use that authority? Dominic wanted to say no immediately, to reassure her that she was completely safe. But he'd promised honesty, and honesty meant admitting his own capacity for cruelty. I don't know. I'd like to think I wouldn't. But I've done terrible things for less reason than anger or disappointment. I can't promise you I'm suddenly a different person just because we're married. She absorbed this, nodded slowly. Thank you for not lying. You asked for truth. Most people would have lied anyway, told me what I wanted to hear. I'm not most people. No. She almost smiled. You're really not. The days that followed developed a strange rhythm. Dominic left early for meetings and business that Serafina didn't ask about. She spent mornings exploring the penthouse, afternoons talking to education programs that Victor's wife, a revelation that had surprised her, recommended. Evenings they shared dinner, sometimes in silence, sometimes with halting conversation that got easier each time. Serafina claimed the bedroom at the far end of the hall, the one with east-facing windows that caught the sunrise. Dominic had her things moved without comment. She started leaving books around the apartment, her jacket on the back of a chair, signs of habitation that made the sterile space feel more lived in. On the fourth day, Marcus stopped by unannounced. Dominic was in his office when Victor buzzed up. Chen's here, says it's important. Send him up. Marcus came in looking concerned. We need to talk about the Colombo situation. Not now. Yes, now. They're making noise about the shipping routes, claiming we overstepped by taking Vale's territory. It's not Vale's territory anymore, it's mine. That's the problem. They had an arrangement with Aldo. Money flowing their direction. Now that money's gone and they're pissed. Dominic felt the old familiar anger rising. Then they can be pissed. I'm not negotiating. You might have to. Unless you want a war. I've handled wars before. Not like this. Not when you've got... Marcus lowered his voice. Not when you've got a wife to protect. The words hit harder than they should have. Dominic stood, moved to the window. What are you saying? I'm saying they know about Serafina. Everyone knows. And some people are wondering if that's a weakness they can exploit. If anyone touches her, I know, you'll burn down the city, but that doesn't help her if she's already hurt. Marcus stepped closer. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to make you think strategically. The old Dominic would have seen this coming, would have had contingencies in place. The old Dominic didn't have complications. You mean he didn't care about collateral damage? Marcus studied him. What's happening with you? You've been different since the wedding, distracted. I'm handling it. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, you're making decisions based on something other than business. And in our world, that gets people killed. Dominic's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. He opened it and felt his blood go cold. The photo showed Serafina leaving the building that morning. The angle suggested it was taken from a car across the street. No message, just the picture. We have a problem. He showed Marcus the phone. Shit, when did this come in? Just now. Dominic was already moving, heading for the living room where Serafina was reading. She looked up when he entered, saw his face, and immediately tensed. What's wrong? We need to talk about security. Security? Someone's watching you, taking pictures. He showed her the photo. This was sent to me 5 minutes ago. The color drained from her face. Why would someone... Because they know you matter. Because they think you're a vulnerability they can use against me. Dominic kept his voice level despite the rage building in his chest. Which means we need to change how you move through the world. You mean I'm a prisoner now? I mean you need protection, constant protection. Victor will assign a team. No. Serafina stood, the book falling from her lap. No, I just started feeling like I could breathe, like I had some kind of freedom. I'm not giving that up. This isn't negotiable. Everything is negotiable. You said I had choices here, that this could be bearable. That was before someone sent me a picture of you as a threat. You don't know it's a threat. Maybe it's a threat. Dominic's voice went hard. I know how this works. Someone shows you they have access, that they can get close. Next time it's not just a picture. Marcus cleared his throat from the doorway. He's right, Serafina. This is serious. Of course you'd take his side. I'm not taking sides. I'm trying to keep you alive. Marcus looked at Dominic. But she's also not wrong. Lock her down too tight, and you're doing exactly what her father did, just with different words. Dominic wanted to argue, but Marcus had a point. He turned back to Serafina. What do you want? I want to feel safe, but I also want to feel human, not like some object that needs to be locked in a vault. Then what's the middle ground? She thought for a moment. Security when I go out, fine, but not hovering, not following me from room to room. And I get to maintain some kind of normal life, school, volunteering, whatever. I don't become a prisoner in my own home. Agreed, but you follow Victor's protocols. You tell someone where you're going, you don't take unnecessary risks. Because my risks become your problems. Because I don't want you hurt. The words came out more raw than Dominic intended. Is that so hard to believe? Serafina looked at him for a long moment. No, that's what scares me, that you actually mean it. Why does that scare you? Because it's easier when you're just the monster. When this is just a transaction. When I can hate you without complications. She hugged herself. But you keep being, human. And that makes everything more confusing. Marcus made a strategic exit, murmuring something about checking perimeter security. The silence he left behind pressed down like weight. I don't know how to do this. Serafina's voice was small. I don't know how to be married to you while also being terrified of what you represent. How to accept your protection while knowing it comes because someone sees me as leverage. How does... She stopped. How to start trusting you when everything I know says I shouldn't. You shouldn't trust me. Not completely. I'm not a good man, Serafina. I'm trying to be better for you, but I don't know if better is possible. That's not reassuring. It's honest. Yeah. She sat back down, suddenly exhausted. It is that. Dominic's phone rang. Victor. We've got the car that took the photo. Traffic cam caught the plate. It's registered to one of Colombo's lieutenants. Bring him in. Quietly or loud? Dominic looked at Serafina, sitting there looking small and scared and trying so hard to be brave. Loud. I want everyone to know what happens when they threaten what's mine. He ended the call. Serafina was watching him. What are you going to do? Handle it? That means hurt someone. Maybe kill them. Probably. Because of a picture. Because of what the picture represents. Because they're testing boundaries, and I need to make it clear there are lines they don't cross. She stood, moved to the window, her reflection ghostly in the glass. This is your world. Violence and threats and proving who's more dangerous. Yes, and I'm part of it now, whether I want to be or not. Yes, then I need you to promise me something. What? That when you do whatever you're going to do, it's actually necessary, not just because you're angry or because you can, that there's a real reason. Dominic crossed to stand beside her, careful to maintain distance. They sent me a picture of you as a message. The message is that they can get to you, that they're willing to use you to hurt me. If I don't respond with overwhelming force, every enemy I have will think you're an acceptable target. That's the reason. Is it necessary enough? She nodded slowly. I hate that it makes sense. Welcome to my world. Our world now, she corrected him. For better or worse. Isn't that what the vows said? I don't remember the vows. I was too busy watching you shake. I remember them. I remember every word. Because I was terrified that saying them out loud would make this real, would trap me forever. She turned to face him. Turns out I was right. If you want out, I can't get out. My sisters, remember? And now someone's taking pictures of me, which means if I leave, they might follow. Might use me against you anyway, even if we're not married. She laughed without humor. I'm trapped by protection. That's almost poetic. Serafina, it's okay. I'm not blaming you. Not for this part anyway. You're trying to keep me safe. I understand that. She pressed her palm against the glass. I just wish safety didn't feel so much like a cage. Dominic's phone buzzed again. Victor with an update. We have him. Warehouse in Red Hook. He's not talking yet. I'll be there in 20 minutes. You're going now. Serafina stated it rather than asked. Yes. To hurt him. To get information, whatever it takes. She turned away from the window. Then go. Do what you need to do. I'll be here when you get back. Locked in my cage where it's safe. That's not fair. None of this is fair. That's the point. She moved past him toward her bedroom. Just try not to enjoy it too much. The violence. I know you're capable of terrible things, but I'd like to think some part of you still feels something when you hurt people. She closed her bedroom door before he could respond, leaving Dominic standing in the living room feeling like he'd lost an argument he didn't know they were having. The warehouse in Red Hook was exactly what it sounded like. Abandoned, isolated, the kind of place where screams wouldn't carry. The man Victor had grabbed was tied to a chair in the center of the empty space, bleeding from a split lip, but otherwise intact. For now. His name's Danny Costa. Victor handed Dominic a file. Works for Marco Colombo. Low-level enforcement, nothing special. Who told him to take the picture? He's claiming he was just doing surveillance, that Marco wanted to know your movements. Dominic approached the chair. Danny looked up with defiance that was mostly performance. I don't know anything. You know who sent you, you know why, and you know what happens next if you don't start talking. Marco's going to kill me if I talk. I'm going to kill you if you don't. Question is which death you prefer. Danny swallowed hard. I want a lawyer. Dominic almost laughed. This isn't an arrest, Danny. There are no lawyers. There's just you, me, and however much pain you can take before you tell me what I want to know. I got rights. The first hit caught Danny across the face, snapping his head back. Blood sprayed from his nose. Dominic felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, the old instincts kicking in. This was what he knew, what he was good at. Try again. Who sent you? Marco Colombo. Danny was crying now. He said to watch the girl, see her patterns, report back. Report back what? When she's alone. Where she goes. If she's got protection. Danny spat blood. He's planning something, I don't know what. He doesn't tell me that stuff. But you have theories. He's pissed about the shipping routes, about you taking Vale's territory. He wants to hurt you back. By hurting her. Danny didn't answer, which was answer enough. Dominic hit him again, felt something crack under his knuckles. The violence felt good in a way that made him sick. This was who he was. This was what he did. When? I don't know. Soon. He's gathering people, making plans. That's all I know, I swear. Victor stepped forward. He's telling the truth. Or he's a better liar than most. Dominic stepped back, his hands bloody. Get rid of him. Wait. Danny's voice went high with panic. You said if I talked... I said I'd kill you if you didn't. Never promised I wouldn't kill you if you did. Dominic turned to Victor. Make it quick. He cooperated. Please. Dominic walked out before he could hear the end of Danny's begging. Outside, the night air felt cold against his face. His hands were shaking, not from fear, but from the cocktail of violence and adrenaline that always left him feeling simultaneously powerful and hollow. His phone buzzed. A text from Serafina. Did you get your answers? He stared at the message, surprised she'd reached out. Yes. Are you okay? The question almost made him laugh. When was the last time someone had asked him that? I'm fine. Be home in an hour. I'll leave dinner out for you. Such a domestic response to bloodshed, such a strange life they were building. When Dominic got back to the penthouse, he found Serafina curled up on the couch reading. She looked up when he entered, took in his bloody knuckles and the hollowness in his eyes. Go clean up. I'll heat the food. He did, scrubbing the blood away and changing clothes, trying to wash off the feeling of what he'd done. When he emerged, she had pasta and bread waiting, a glass of wine poured. They ate in silence. Serafina didn't ask about the blood or what had happened in that warehouse. Didn't ask if the man was alive or dead, just sat across from him and shared a meal like this was normal. I talked to a volunteer coordinator today. Her voice was casual. At an elementary school in Brooklyn. They need reading tutors. That sounds good. I start next week. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Victor will arrange security. I figured. She took a sip of wine. The coordinator seemed nice, normal. She has no idea who I'm married to. Does that bother you? No, it's kind of refreshing, actually, being just Serafina for a few hours. Not the girl who got sold or the wife of a dangerous man. Just me. You're allowed to be just you here, too. She looked at him, something sad in her eyes. Am I, though? Can I really be just me when I'm constantly aware of what you are? Of what you're capable of? I don't know. Me neither. She set her fork down. I'm trying, Dominic. I'm really trying to find a way to exist in this situation. To not hate you. To not hate myself for not hating you. But it's hard when you come home with bloody hands and I'm just supposed to pretend it's normal. You want me to lie? Pretend I'm something I'm not? No, I want... She stopped, shook her head. I don't know what I want. That's the problem. I'm so confused about everything. About you, about this, about who I'm supposed to be now. Dominic pushed his plate away. The man I questioned tonight is dead. Victor handled it while I was cleaning up. He was planning to help Columbo hurt you, maybe kidnap you, maybe worse. So I had him killed. And I don't feel bad about it. Serafina absorbed this without flinching. Should you feel bad? Probably. Normal people would. Are you a normal person? No? Then why expect normal reactions? She stood, started clearing dishes. I'm not saying what you did was right. I'm not equipped to judge that, but I understand why you did it. That's all I can offer right now. That's more than I expected. Don't mistake understanding for acceptance. She turned to face him. I understand why you hurt people, why you kill them, why violence is your default solution. But that doesn't mean I accept it. Doesn't mean I'll ever be comfortable with it. I'm not asking you to be comfortable. What are you asking for then? Dominic didn't have an answer. He didn't know what he wanted from her beyond her not being terrified, beyond some kind of peace between them that made the marriage bearable, beyond the growing feeling that having her in his life mattered in ways he couldn't explain. I'm asking for time, he finally said. Time to figure out what this is, what we are. We're two people trapped in an arrangement neither of us wanted. That's what we are. And what could we be? If we tried? She looked at him for a long moment. I don't know. Maybe something less painful. Maybe something that doesn't feel like drowning. Maybe... She stopped. Maybe we should just take it one day at a time and stop trying to define it. One day at a time. Yeah. She moved toward her bedroom. Good night, Dominic. Good night. She paused in the doorway. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're trying. Even if I don't always know how to respond to it, the effort matters. Then she was gone, her door closing with a soft click that somehow didn't sound like defeat anymore. Just sounded like an ending to one day and the promise of another beginning tomorrow. Dominic sat alone in the living room, looking at the city lights and thinking about bloody knuckles and dead men and a girl who was trying so hard to find humanity in a situation designed to strip it away. He'd built his empire on being feared, on never showing weakness, on crushing anyone who challenged him. And now his greatest challenge was a 22-year-old woman who looked at him with a mixture of fear and hope and asked him to be better than everything he'd ever been. The question was whether better was possible. Whether a man who'd made violence his language could learn to speak in kindness. Whether someone who'd spent 20 years building walls could tear them down for a person he barely knew. He didn't have answers. Just bloody hands that would never quite come clean, a hollow feeling that violence no longer filled, and the growing certainty that Serafina Vale was changing him in ways he didn't fully understand. And that terrified him more than anything else ever had. 2 weeks passed in careful negotiation of space and silence. Serafina started her volunteer work at the elementary school in Brooklyn, coming home with stories about kids who couldn't read yet but loved books anyway, about the way second graders approach the world with fearless curiosity. Dominic listened to these stories over dinner and found himself wanting to protect that brightness in her voice, that glimpse of who she might have been if her father hadn't sold her future. Victor's security team became invisible shadows, always present but never intrusive. Serafina learned to ignore them, the way city people learn to ignore sirens. She was adapting, finding rhythms in captivity that almost resembled normalcy. Almost. The call came on a Tuesday morning. Dominic was in a meeting with his lawyers about territorial disputes when Marcus burst in without knocking. We have a situation. Dominic stood immediately. Serafina? No, her sister, the youngest one. Someone tried to grab her outside her school. Everything went cold. Tried? Our guys stopped it, but it was close, too close. Marcus's face was grim. It's escalating. Dominic was already moving, phone out, calling Victor. Get Serafina home, now, and bring me Marco Columbo. Boss, if we grab Marco, this becomes a full-scale war. Then we go to war. Nobody touches those kids. Nobody. He ended the call. Marcus was watching him with something like concern. You need to think about this. Really think. Starting a war over what? Over a 10-year-old girl whose only crime was having a coward for a father and a sister I married? Dominic grabbed his jacket. This is exactly what I told them would happen. They test boundaries. I respond with overwhelming force. That's how this works. That's how the old you worked. But you've got Serafina to think about now. You go to war, she becomes a target. Everyone knows that. She's already a target. They proved that when they sent me her picture, when they went after her sister. Dominic headed for the door. The only way to keep her safe is to make everyone so afraid of me that they wouldn't dare. Or you could negotiate. Find a middle ground with Colombo. There is no middle ground with people who threaten children, Victor called back within minutes. Serafina's secure. She's on her way back now, but she's asking questions. Tell her I'll explain when I get there. Boss, she's not going to take this well. She's already freaking out about her sister. Then keep her calm until I arrive. Dominic climbed into his car, the driver already pulling into traffic. And find Marco. I don't care what it takes. The drive back to the penthouse felt endless. Dominic's mind ran through scenarios, contingencies, all the ways this could blow up. He'd known marrying Serafina would complicate things. He'd known her family would become his responsibility whether he wanted it or not. But knowing something intellectually and dealing with the reality of a child nearly being kidnapped were different things. When he walked into the penthouse, Serafina was pacing like a caged animal. She whirled on him the moment he entered. Is Emma okay? They said she's okay, but I need to talk to her. I need to hear her voice. She's fine. She's at your parents' house with extra security. She doesn't even know anything happened. What do you mean she doesn't know? Someone tried to grab her. Of course she knows. Our guys stopped it before she saw anything. As far as she knows, some new bodyguards showed up to walk her home from school. That's all. Serafina stopped pacing. Bodyguards. 10-year-olds don't have bodyguards. This one does now. So does your other sister. This is insane. She pressed her hands to her face. This is my fault. I brought this into their lives. No. Your father brought this into their lives when he made deals with dangerous people. When he used you as payment for his mistakes. When he created a situation where your sisters became leverage. Dominic moved closer but didn't touch her. This is not on you. But it's happening because of me. Because I'm married to you. Because someone wants to hurt you and they're using my family to do it. Yes. And I'm going to make sure it never happens again. She looked up at him, fear and anger warring in her expression. How? By killing more people? By starting some kind of gang war that puts even more people at risk? By making it clear that there are consequences, that some lines don't get crossed. And you get to decide where those lines are. In this case? Yes, I do. Serafina walked to the window, wrapped her arms around herself. I want to see Emma and Sophie. I need to see them. Not yet. Not until we know it's safe. When will that be? When I've dealt with Marco Colombo. Dealt with. She turned to face him. You mean killed? Just say it. You're going to kill him. If that's what it takes. And if killing him makes things worse, if his people retaliate, if more children become targets, they won't. Not after I'm done. You can't possibly know that. I know how power works in this world. I know that strength is the only language people like Marco understand. I show weakness now, show that I can be pressured through your family, and it becomes open season. Every enemy I have will think they can hurt me by hurting the people you love. Serafina was quiet for a long moment. I hate that you're right. I know. I hate that violence is the answer, that we can't just talk this out like reasonable people. Marco stopped being reasonable when he sent someone after a child. So did you. The moment you killed that first person. The moment you decided power was more important than humanity. She held up a hand when he started to respond. I'm not saying you're wrong about Marco. I'm saying you're both operating in a world where children are acceptable casualties, where fear is currency and violence is the only negotiation that matters, and I'm trapped in the middle of it. Then what do you want me to do? Let it go? Wait for them to actually succeed in taking Emma next time? No, I want you to. She stopped, frustrated. I don't know what I want. I want my sister safe. I want to not be terrified every second of every day. I want to live in a world where 10-year-olds don't need armed guards, but that's not the world we live in, is it? No. So do what you're going to do. Protect them. Protect me. Use whatever violence you think is necessary. Her voice went hollow. Just don't expect me to pretend it doesn't make me sick. Dominic's phone rang. Victor. We have Marco. He's asking to talk. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He says he wants to meet face to face. Neutral ground. Just you and him. That's a trap. Probably. But he's offering information. Says there's something you need to know before you start a war. Dominic considered. Set it up. But I want eyes everywhere. He makes one wrong move, we end it. He hung up. Serafina was watching him. You're going to meet with him? Yes. Is that smart? Probably not. But I need to hear what he has to say. You mean you need to look him in the eye when you decide whether to kill him? She knew him too well already. Yes. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Why? Because it's dangerous. Everything about this life is dangerous. At least if I'm there, I can see it firsthand instead of sitting here imagining worse. Serafina, I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you I'm coming. You want me to understand your world? Let me see it. All of it. Not just the parts you think I can handle. Dominic wanted to argue, to lock her in the penthouse where it was safe. But the look in her eyes told him she'd find a way to follow anyway. And maybe she was right. Maybe she needed to see the ugliness up close to understand why he did what he did. Fine, but you stay in the car with Victor. You don't get out. You don't interfere. You just watch. Agreed. The meeting was set for a warehouse in Queens, industrial and isolated. Dominic arrived with Victor and 2 other security guys, plus Serafina in the back of the SUV. Marco was already there, leaning against a black sedan with 3 of his own men standing nearby. Stay here, Dominic told Serafina. No matter what happens. I will. He stepped out of the vehicle. Marco watched him approach, his expression unreadable. Virelli, thanks for coming. You've got 5 minutes to tell me why I shouldn't end this right now. Because I'm not the one who sent people after your wife's sister. That stopped Dominic cold. You're lying. Am I? Think about it. What do I gain from escalating with you? You took the shipping routes, yeah. I'm pissed about it, but I'm not stupid enough to start a war over territory I was barely profiting from anyway. Then who took the picture? Who sent Danny to watch Serafina? Danny worked for me, but he was also working for someone else. Someone who wanted you to think I was behind this. Someone who wanted us to destroy each other so they could move in on both our operations. Dominic felt pieces shifting. Who? Your new father-in-law. The words hit like a physical blow. Aldo. He's been playing both sides. Made a deal with me months ago. I'd help him create problems for you, make you look weak, and in exchange he'd give me access to shipping routes even after you took over. Said his daughter would help from the inside. Serafina doesn't know anything about this. I don't think she does, but Aldo figured once you were dealing with external threats, once your marriage fell apart because you couldn't protect her family, the whole arrangement would collapse. He could void the contract, take back control, and I'd be positioned to take over your territory while you were distracted. Dominic's hands curled into fists. You have proof? Marco pulled out his phone, showed him a series of text messages. Coordinates, meeting times, plans laid out in careful detail, all from Aldo's private number. He sent Danny to take that picture. Told him to make it look like my operation. Then he arranged the grab attempt on the kid to push you into starting a war with me. Marco's smile was cold. Guy's willing to risk his own daughter getting hurt just to get out from under your thumb. That's some cold shit even by our standards. Dominic felt rage building, white-hot and focused. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't like being used. And because Aldo Val is the kind of weasel who makes us all look bad. He needs to learn there are consequences. Marco pocketed his phone. I'm not saying you and I are friends. We're not. But we don't need to be enemies either. Not over this. What do you want? I want Aldo handled, permanently. And I want a small percentage on the shipping routes, just enough to make peace. Dominic considered. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, that Marco was playing him. But the evidence was there, the logic sound, and it made a terrible kind of sense. Aldo was exactly the type of coward who'd risk his own children to save himself. I'll think about it. Don't think too long. Aldo's got more moves planned. Next time, it might not be just an attempted grab. Next time, one of those kids might actually disappear. Dominic turned and walked back to the SUV. Serafina was watching through the tinted window, her face pale. He climbed in next to her. Drive. Victor pulled out. They were 3 blocks away before Serafina spoke. What did he say? Dominic pulled out his own phone, pulled up the contacts, found Aldo's number. Your father's been playing both sides, setting up attacks on you and your sisters to make me go to war with Marco, trying to destroy the marriage so he can take back control of his territory. No, he couldn't. Dominic showed her the screenshots Marco had sent, watched her face as she read through her father's messages, each one more damning than the last. Oh my God, her voice broke. He was willing to let Emma get kidnapped, to let something happen to her, just to get rid of me, to void the contract. But Emma, Sophie, his own children. Serafina's hands were shaking. What kind of father risks his own children? The kind who only sees them as assets, as leverage to be used. Dominic took the phone back. I'm sorry. Don't apologize for showing me who he really is. I should have seen it before. Should have realized when he sold me that his other daughters weren't sacred either, that none of us were actually people to him. What do you want me to do? She looked at him, and in her eyes Dominic saw something he'd never seen before. Not fear, not resignation. Something harder, colder. I want you to protect my sisters. Really protect them. Not from external threats. From him. From our father. That means taking him out of the picture completely. I know what it means. Her voice didn't waver. He'll keep using us. Keep putting us at risk. As long as he's alive and desperate, Emma and Sophie will never be safe. Serafina, you're asking me to? I'm asking you to do what you do, what you're good at. Remove a threat. She met his eyes. I'm asking you to kill my father. The words hung in the air between them, stark and brutal. Dominic searched her face for hesitation, for the girl who'd flinched at his touch 2 weeks ago. But she was gone. In her place was someone who'd been pushed too far, who'd learned too quickly how little protection family provided when the family was rotten. You're sure? He tried to have Emma kidnapped. He's been orchestrating attacks on me. He sold me and then tried to destroy the one thing that actually came from it, you trying to be decent. Her jaw set. I'm sure. Once this happens, there's no going back. You can't unknow that your husband killed your father. I already can't unknow that my father tried to have his own daughters hurt. This just makes us even. Dominic pulled out his phone, typed a message to Victor. It'll look like an accident. Heart attack. Nothing that comes back on you or your sisters. I don't care what it looks like. I just want them safe. The car pulled up to the penthouse. They rode the elevator in silence, the weight of what they'd just agreed to pressing down like stone. Once inside, Serafina walked straight to the window, stared out at the city. I'm a terrible person. Her voice was quiet. I just ordered my father's death, and I don't feel bad about it. You're not terrible. You're protecting the people you love. By becoming like you. By choosing violence as the solution. You're nothing like me. Aren't I? I just made the exact calculation you make every day. Weighing lives, deciding who deserves to live and who deserves to die. Using power to solve problems. She turned to face him. The only difference is you've had practice. The difference is I chose this world. You were forced into it. Does that actually matter? The result's the same. My father's going to die because I said so. Because I decided his life was worth less than my sister's safety. Dominic moved to stand beside her, careful to maintain distance. If you want to change your mind, I don't. That's what makes me terrible. I don't want to change my mind. I want him gone. I want my sisters safe. She stopped. I want to stop being afraid all the time. And if that makes me a bad person, then I guess I'm a bad person now. You're not bad. You're surviving. Is that what you tell yourself? When you kill people, when you hurt them, when you make decisions that destroy lives, you're just surviving? Sometimes. Other times I'm just being what I've always been. A monster. Yes. She turned to him fully, and for the first time in 2 weeks, she closed the distance between them. Stood close enough that he could feel her warmth, see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. I don't think you're a monster. You should. I know, but I don't. You've had every opportunity to hurt me and you haven't. You've protected my sisters even when it complicated your life. You're trying to be better, even though it goes against everything you know. She reached up slowly, giving him time to stop her, and touched his face. I think maybe you're just a person who's never had the option of being anything else. Dominic stood frozen, her hand warm against his jaw. It was the first time she'd touched him voluntarily, without fear or obligation. The first time she'd chosen proximity instead of distance. Serafina, I'm still afraid of you. I probably always will be. But I'm starting to understand you, starting to see that the monster parts and the human parts are all tangled up together, that you can be both terrible and kind, dangerous and protective, that maybe people aren't just one thing. What changed? I realized my father was worse than you, that the man who raised me, who was supposed to protect me, was willing to sacrifice his own children for money and power. While you, the man I was taught to fear, has shown me more care in 2 weeks than he did in 22 years. Her hand dropped away. That changed my perspective on monsters. Dominic's phone buzzed. Victor with an update. It's done. Vale's car went off the road on his way home, crashed into a barrier. He died on impact, clean, like you wanted. Dominic read the message, felt the weight of it settling into his bones. He'd killed men before. Ordered deaths, carried them out himself, never lost sleep over it. But this was different. This was Serafina's father, however terrible he'd been. This was crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. He showed her the phone, watched her read the message, watched her absorb the reality that her father was dead, and it was her decision that killed him. She didn't cry, didn't react at all for a long moment. Then she nodded once. Good. When do we tell my sisters? Your mother will handle it. She'll call you tomorrow. It'll look like an accident. No one will know it was anything else. What about the funeral? You'll attend, play the grieving daughter. We'll maintain appearances. Appearances? She laughed without humor. My whole life has been about appearances. Appearing dutiful, appearing grateful, appearing like everything was fine when it was falling apart. I'm tired of appearances. What do you want instead? Truth. Even if it's ugly. Even if it hurts. She moved to the couch, sat down heavily. My father was a terrible person who used his own children as bargaining chips. He died because he threatened the wrong people and thought he could manipulate everyone around him. That's the truth, and I'm not going to pretend to mourn him. Dominic sat across from her, uncertain territory for both of them. Your sisters will mourn him. They're young. They don't know what he really was. Let them have their grief. Let them remember him as the father they thought they had. Serafina looked at him. But between us, let's be honest. He was a monster too. Just a different kind than you. What kind am I? The kind that knows what he is. That doesn't pretend to be something noble while doing terrible things. You're honest about your violence. He dressed his up as family duty. She pulled her knees to her chest. I think I prefer your kind. They sat in silence as the sun set, painting the room in shades of amber and shadow. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious to the death of one man, the transformation of a girl into something harder, the strange evolution of a marriage built on transactions into something that might eventually resemble understanding. I should feel worse about this, Serafina finally said. I should be crying or angry or something, but I just feel relieved. Is that wrong? I don't know. I'm not the person to ask about right and wrong. Maybe there isn't a right or wrong. Maybe there's just survival and the choices we make to get through each day. That's a bleak worldview. I'm married to a crime boss who just killed my father on my order. Bleak seems appropriate. Dominic almost smiled. You've got a dark sense of humor. Turns out I need one to survive your world. Our world. She corrected herself. I keep saying your world, but it's mine now too, for better or worse. Those vows again. Yeah, those vows. She stood, walked to the window one more time. Do you think we'll ever figure this out? How to be married to each other without all the complications. Honestly? No. I think the complications are the point. We're too different from two different places. But maybe we can figure out how to live with the complications. That's not very romantic. We didn't have a romantic beginning. Why start lying now? She turned to look at him, and something in her expression was softer than before. You know what the strangest part is? I'm starting to feel safe with you. Not despite the violence, but because of it. Because I know you'll do whatever it takes to protect me, even terrible things, especially terrible things. That's not safety, Serafina. That's just being on the right side of a dangerous man. Maybe that's all safety ever is in this world, being valuable enough to protect, being cared about enough that someone's willing to be terrible on your behalf. She moved back to the couch but sat closer to him this time, not touching, but closer. Thank you for protecting my sisters, for dealing with my father, for trying to make this bearable. You thanked me for killing your father. I thanked you for keeping your promises. There's a difference. Dominic looked at this girl who was learning to navigate darkness with the same determination she probably once brought to teaching kids to read, who was finding her own kind of strength in a world designed to break her, who looked at him with clear eyes and saw both the monster and the man and chose not to run from either. You're stronger than I gave you credit for. I'm discovering that. Turns out, when you stop being afraid of everything, you realize you're capable of more than you thought. Even terrible things. Even survival at any cost. She leaned back against the cushions. My father always said I was weak, too soft, too emotional, too impractical. I think he was wrong. He was definitely wrong. Or maybe I'm only discovering strength now because I have to. Because this situation requires it. Because you showed me that surviving sometimes means making impossible choices. She looked at him. Is that what happened to you? Did you start out different, and violence made you into this? I started out afraid and powerless. Violence gave me power. Once I had it, I never wanted to be powerless again. And now? Now I'm still powerful, still dangerous. But for the first time, I'm wondering if that's all I want to be. What else could you be? Dominic didn't have an answer. He'd never considered alternatives. Never imagined a life beyond empire building and fear-mongering and the constant calculation of power dynamics. But sitting here with Serafina, watching her transform from victim to something harder and more resilient, he felt the first stirrings of possibility. Maybe he could be someone who protected without destroying, someone who used power for something other than accumulation, someone who might eventually deserve the tentative trust he saw growing in Serafina's eyes. I don't know yet, he finally answered. But I'm willing to find out. She reached out slowly, the same way she'd touched his face earlier, and took his hand. The gesture was simple but monumental, the first time she'd initiated contact without fear driving it. Then let's figure it out together. Two terrible people trying to be slightly less terrible. That's got to count for something. Dominic looked down at their joined hands, at the visible contrast between her smooth skin and his scarred knuckles, between her tentative trust and his bloody history. It shouldn't work. Nothing about this should work. But somehow, impossibly, it was starting to. The funeral was everything Aldo would have wanted. Expensive, performative, filled with people who'd hated him, but showed up anyway because that's what you did. Serafina stood between her mother and Dominic, wearing black and the appropriate expression of grief, playing her part with the same skill she'd once used to survive her father's house. Emma and Sophie clung to Catherine, genuinely devastated, and watching their tears made something twist in Serafina's chest. Not guilt, she didn't regret what she'd done, but sadness that they'd lost the father they'd believed in, even if that father had never really existed. You okay? Dominic's voice was low, meant only for her. I'm fine, just ready for this to be over. Marcus approached after the service, offering condolences that sounded almost genuine. Your father was a complicated man. That's one word for it. Serafina didn't bother pretending, not with Marcus, who knew exactly what Aldo had been. For what it's worth, you're handling this better than most people would. I've had practice pretending things are fine when they're falling apart. This is just another performance. Marcus studied her with new appreciation. You're tougher than you look. I'm learning to be. She glanced at Dominic. Good teachers. After the funeral, there was the obligatory gathering at her mother's house. Catherine played the devastated widow with Oscar-worthy commitment, accepting sympathy from people who saw through her act but participated anyway. Serafina watched her mother work the room and wondered if Catherine had known about Aldo's plan, if she'd been complicit or just willfully blind. Serafina, her mother cornered her in the kitchen, away from the crowd. We need to talk about arrangements. Your father's estate, the business interests, the house. What about them? Everything's in chaos. The lawyers say most of his assets were already transferred to your husband, that the marriage contract gave Dominic control over everything. Catherine's composure cracked. We have nothing. The house is mortgaged. The accounts are empty. He left us with nothing but debt. Serafina felt no sympathy. He made his choices. You could help us. Talk to Dominic. Surely he'd be willing to what? Give you money? After what Dad tried to do? Catherine's face went pale. What are you talking about? You really don't know? Serafina laughed bitterly. Dad was working with Marco Colombo, setting up attacks on me, on Emma, trying to start a war that would destroy my marriage so he could take back his territory and profit from it. He was willing to risk his own children to get out from under Dominic's control. That's not... He wouldn't... He would. He did. Dominic has proof. Serafina moved closer. So no, I'm not going to ask my husband for mercy for a family that sold me and then tried to destroy the one thing that came from it. You're on your own, Mom, just like you left me on my own when you prepared me to be used instead of protecting me. I was trying to prepare you for reality, for what marriage would require. You were trying to make me compliant, trying to turn me into property that wouldn't fight back. Serafina's voice went cold. Well, I learned, just not the lessons you intended. I learned that family doesn't mean protection, that duty is just another word for sacrifice, that the only person who'll actually protect me is the man you told me to fear. Catherine reached for her daughter's hand. Serafina pulled away. Don't. You made your choice when you sided with Dad, when you taught me to endure instead of teaching me to fight. Now live with it. She walked away, back to where Dominic stood talking with Victor. He looked at her questioningly. We're leaving, now. He didn't argue, just made their excuses and guided her to the car. Once inside, Serafina let out a breath she'd been holding for hours. That bad? My mother wants money, wants me to ask you for help because Dad left them with nothing. What did you tell her? That she's on her own, that I'm done being the solution to their problems. Dominic was quiet for a moment. If you want to help your sisters, my sisters are still minors. They're covered under the marriage contract's family protection clauses. They'll be taken care of. But my mother? She made her choices. She can live with them. You've gotten hard. I've gotten realistic. There's a difference. She looked out the window as the city slid past. Besides, I learned from the best. I'm not sure that's a compliment. It wasn't meant to be an insult either, just a fact. She turned back to him. Can we go somewhere? Not the penthouse. Somewhere else. Somewhere that isn't connected to any of this. Where? I don't care. Anywhere. I just need to breathe. Dominic gave the driver new instructions. They ended up at a park along the Hudson, the kind of place normal people went to walk dogs and watch sunsets. They sat on a bench overlooking the water, the city behind them, pretending for a moment that they were just two people instead of what they actually were. I keep waiting to feel guilty. Serafina spoke first. About my father, about ordering his death, but I just feel empty. Like something's missing, but I can't figure out what. That's normal. Grief is complicated even when you hated the person. Is it grief, though, or just the absence of something that was always painful? Maybe both. Dominic stretched his arm across the back of the bench, not touching her, but close. When my father died, I felt relief more than anything. Relief that he couldn't hurt me anymore. Relief that I was finally free. But there was also this weird sense of loss. Not for him specifically, but for the idea of what a father should have been. That's exactly it. I'm mourning the father I wish I'd had, not the one I actually got. She leaned back, her shoulder brushing against his arm. She didn't move away. Do you think we're broken? That we're too damaged to be normal people? We were never going to be normal people, not with the lives we've lived. But could we be? If we tried? If we just Walked away from all of it? You want to walk away? Serafina considered. Sometimes. Sometimes I imagine what it would be like to just disappear. Change our names, move somewhere no one knows us, start over completely. No violence, no threats, no constant calculations about power and safety. That's a fantasy. I know, but it's a nice one. She turned to look at him. Would you? If you could? If there was a way to just stop being this person and be someone else? Dominic thought about it honestly. I don't know. This is all I've been for so long. I don't know who I'd be without it. But lately, with you, I've started wondering if there could be more. If power and fear are really all I want out of life. What else is there? I don't know yet. Maybe that's something we figure out together. They sat in silence, watching boats move up the river, the sun sinking lower. A couple walked past with a dog, laughing about something. Normal people living normal lives, completely unaware of the danger sitting on a park bench watching them. I start classes next week. No, Serafina said eventually. Finished my application to NYU. They accepted me into their education program. That's good. That's what you wanted. It's weird, having things I want, having a future that isn't just about surviving. She pulled her knees up, rested her chin on them. A month ago, my only goal was getting through each day without falling apart. Now I'm making plans, thinking about what comes next. It feels strange. Strange good or strange bad? Strange hopeful, which scares me because hope feels dangerous. Like if I let myself want things, they'll just get taken away. Not everything gets taken away. In our world, most things do. People, safety, innocence. This life takes everything eventually. Dominic couldn't argue with that. He'd seen too much, lost too much, to pretend otherwise. So what do? Just accept that everything's temporary and not try for anything better? I don't know. Maybe we try anyway. Maybe we build something knowing it could fall apart. Maybe that's all anyone can do. She looked at him. Are we building something? Or are we just surviving proximity? What do you think we're doing? I think we're learning each other. Learning how to exist in the same space without destroying each other. Whether that's building something or just making the best of a bad situation, I honestly can't tell yet. Fair enough. But I don't hate you anymore. I thought I would. Thought I'd spend my whole life resenting you for being part of this situation. But you're not the villain I expected. What am I then? Complicated. Dangerous but not cruel. Violent but not sadistic. Capable of terrible things but also capable of… She trailed off. Of what? Of caring. Even when you don't want to. Even when it complicates things. You care about my sisters. About me. You try to pretend it's just strategy, just protecting your interests, but it's more than that. Dominic wanted to deny it, to maintain the distance that had kept him safe for 20 years. But lying felt pointless. Serafina saw through him too clearly now. Yeah, it's more than that. Since when? I don't know. Somewhere between watching you fall apart on our wedding night and watching you order your father's death, somewhere in there you stopped being a transaction and started being a person I actually gave a damn about. That's not very romantic either. We established we're not romantic people. No, we're really not. She smiled, and it reached her eyes for the first time. But maybe we're something else. Something that works for us even if it wouldn't work for anyone else. They stayed in the park until the sun set completely, until the city lights took over and the temperature dropped. When they finally returned to the penthouse, something felt different, lighter somehow, like they'd left some weight behind on that bench overlooking the Hudson. The next weeks developed their own rhythm. Serafina started classes, filling the apartment with textbooks and the energy of someone rediscovering what they loved. She'd come home with stories about teaching methods and childhood development, about the kids she tutored who were starting to read chapter books. Dominic listened and found himself genuinely interested, not because it connected to business, but because watching her passionate about something mattered. He started coming home earlier, started having dinner with her not out of obligation, but because the alternative, working late in an empty office, felt less appealing. Started asking about her day and meaning it. Started sharing details about his own work, the parts that wouldn't terrify her, testing the boundaries of what honesty looked like between them. One night, about 6 weeks after Aldo's funeral, Serafina emerged from her bedroom wearing pajamas and hesitated in the hallway. Can I ask you something weird? Always. Would it be okay if I sat with you while you work? I don't want to interrupt, She shrugged. My room feels too quiet tonight. Yeah, of course. She curled up on the couch in his office with a textbook while he reviewed contracts. They existed in companionable silence, the kind that felt comfortable instead of tense. After an hour, Dominic looked up to find her asleep, the book open on her chest, her face peaceful in a way it never was when she was awake. He should wake her, send her to her own bed. Instead, he found a blanket and covered her, then went back to work. Something about her presence, even sleeping, made the space feel less like an office and more like home. She was still there in the morning when he woke up on the couch across from her, having fallen asleep at some point without meaning to. She stirred when he moved, blinked at him in confusion. Morning. Morning. She sat up, the blanket falling. Did you sleep here too? Apparently. Why didn't you go to your room? Didn't want to leave you alone in here. Something shifted in her expression. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever done for me, not leaving me alone. That's a really low bar. Welcome to my childhood. But she was smiling. Thank you anyway. The distance between them started closing in increments. Serafina sitting closer during dinner, Dominic's hand on her back when they walked into a restaurant. Small touches that would have terrified her a month ago becoming normal. Her laughter at his dry humor. His interest in her stories. The careful architecture of two people learning to occupy the same space. But the world they lived in didn't allow for slow evolution. It demanded decisions. The call came on a Tuesday. Victor, his voice tight with controlled fury. We've got a problem. Someone hit one of our warehouses in Red Hook, took out 2 of our guys, made off with $500,000 in product. Dominic was out of the apartment in minutes, Serafina watching from the doorway with worried eyes. Be careful. Always am. No, you're not. You're reckless and violent and you think you're invincible. She moved closer. But you're not. So be careful anyway. He wanted to dismiss her concern, to maintain the walls that kept him safe, but something in her eyes stopped him. I will. The warehouse was a crime scene. 2 bodies covered with tarps, security footage wiped, the whole operation clean and professional. Too professional for random thieves. Who did this? Dominic asked Victor. Don't know yet, but it was coordinated. They knew our security patterns, our shift changes, exactly where the product was stored. Inside job. Has to be. Question is who and why. Marcus arrived 15 minutes later, looked at the scene, and swore. This is bad. Really bad. We lose this much product, word gets out, everyone's going to think we're vulnerable. Then we find who did this and make an example. Agreed. But until we do, we need to lock everything down. Double security, rotate shifts, trust no one. Dominic spent the next 3 days hunting. Every contact, every source, every whisper on the street. The answer, when it came, was worse than expected. It was Tommy Ricci. Victor dropped the file on Dominic's desk. Your guy. Been with you for 8 years. Tommy? The betrayal hit harder than it should have. Tommy had been loyal, reliable, one of the few people Dominic actually trusted. You're sure? Surveillance caught him meeting with buyers. He set the whole thing up, took the product, sold it independently, pocketed the cash. Why? Says he needed money. His kids got medical bills, something expensive. He asked you for help 6 months ago. You said no. Dominic remembered. Tommy's daughter had some rare condition, needed experimental treatment. Dominic had looked at the numbers and decided it wasn't a good investment. Had told Tommy to figure it out himself. So he stole from me. Yes, and killed 2 of our people doing it. The old Dominic would have had Tommy executed immediately. Would have made it public and brutal, a lesson to anyone else who thought betrayal was an option. But something made him hesitate. Where is he now? We've got him, waiting for your call on what to do with him. Dominic went to see Tommy himself, found him in a warehouse basement, tied to a chair, bloodied but conscious. When Tommy saw him, something broke in his expression. Boss, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, You didn't what? Think I'd find out? Think there'd be consequences? My daughter, she's dying. The treatment cost $300,000 and I didn't have it. I asked you, you said no, and I didn't know what else to do. So you stole from me, killed 2 of my people, betrayed everything. I know it was wrong, but she's my daughter. She's 8 years old and she's dying, and I couldn't just... Tommy was crying now. I couldn't just let her die. Dominic felt something crack in his chest. A month ago, he would have killed Tommy without hesitation. But now he kept thinking about Serafina's sisters, about what she'd been willing to do to protect them, about the impossible choices people made when they were desperate. You should have come to me again, explained it was urgent. I did, 3 times. Your assistant kept saying you were too busy. That hit like a physical blow. Tommy had tried, had exhausted options, had made the desperate choice of someone out of alternatives. The people you killed, they had families too. I know, Tommy's voice broke. That's going to haunt me forever. But my daughter was dying and I couldn't think about anything else. Dominic pulled out his phone, made a call. How much for the treatment Tommy Ricci's daughter needs? $300,000? Wire it, today. To the hospital directly. Tommy stared at him. What? Your daughter gets her treatment. You get to live. But you're done working for me. You leave the city, you start over somewhere else, and you never come back. You try to contact anyone in my organization, you breathe wrong in my direction, and I finish what I started here. Understood? Why would you? Because I'm trying to be someone different than who I was. Because my wife taught me that maybe mercy isn't always weakness. Because you're a father who made terrible choices trying to save his daughter. And I can't punish that without becoming exactly the monster everyone thinks I am. Dominic turned to Victor. Cut him loose. Get him and his family out of the city by tonight. Boss, do it. Victor did, though his expression suggested he thought Dominic had lost his mind. Maybe he had. Maybe mercy was madness in their world. But Dominic was tired of being the person who only knew how to destroy. When he got home that night, Serafina was waiting up. She took one look at his face and knew something had happened. Tell me. He did. Told her about Tommy, about the betrayal, about the choice he'd made. She listened without interrupting, and when he finished, she moved across the room and hugged him. It was the first time she'd initiated that kind of contact, the first time she'd chosen to offer comfort instead of accept protection. Dominic stood frozen for a moment, then carefully wrapped his arms around her. You did the right thing. Her voice was muffled against his chest. Did I? I let someone who stole from me walk away, who killed my people. That makes me weak. No, it makes you human. It makes you someone who understands that people aren't just assets or threats, that they're complicated and desperate and trying to survive. She pulled back to look at him. It makes you someone I could actually love. Eventually. The word hung between them, huge and terrifying. Love. They'd never used it before, hadn't even approached the concept. But there it was, tentative and honest. Eventually? His voice was rough. I'm not there yet. I'm still learning you, still figuring out if I can trust this. But I could be. Someday. If we keep going like this. If you keep being this person instead of the one everyone expects. What if I can't? What if the old me comes back? Then I'll deal with it. But I don't think he will. I think you're changing. Maybe not completely, maybe not perfectly, but enough. Enough that I can see a future here that isn't just survival. Dominic pulled her closer, felt her relax into him. I don't know how to do this, how to be with someone, how to care about someone without it being leverage. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. Make mistakes, fix them, make new ones. That's what people do. What if I hurt you? Not physically, but just by being who I am. Then you hurt me and we deal with it. But you're already doing better than anyone else in my life ever did. You're trying. That matters more than perfection. They stood there in the middle of the living room, holding each other, 2 broken people learning how to be less broken together. It wasn't romantic. Wasn't the fairy tale ending people wrote about. But it was real and honest and built on something more solid than illusions. The contract that had started this sat in a drawer somewhere, legal language binding them together. But what they were building now had nothing to do with contracts. It was choice. Messy, complicated, imperfect choice. Over the following months, they continued building. Serafina graduated, got her teaching certificate, started working at the same elementary school where she'd volunteered. She came home exhausted and happy, covered in marker stains and glitter, telling Dominic about 6-year-olds who'd learned to read their first sentence. He listened and found himself proud of her in ways that had nothing to do with ownership. He started transitioning his business, not abandoning it. He wasn't naive enough to think he could just walk away, but shifting focus. Moving money from purely criminal enterprises into legitimate businesses, using his power to protect instead of intimidate. It was slow, frustrating work that met resistance at every turn. But Victor supported him, and Marcus helped navigate the transition, and slowly the empire started looking less like a threat and more like a force that could actually do some good. They moved Serafina's sisters into the penthouse for a while when Catherine couldn't handle them anymore. Emma and Sophie transformed the space with their energy and chaos, and Dominic found himself enjoying the noise, found himself helping with homework and learning about middle school drama and becoming something like the uncle they needed. When Catherine finally hit bottom, drunk and desperate and alone, it was Serafina who extended mercy. Not reconciliation, not forgiveness, but enough help to get treatment, enough support to survive. Because that's what mercy looked like in their world. Not forgetting, but not destroying either. The marriage contract came up for review a year after the wedding. The lawyers presented it to Dominic with suggestions for renewals and modifications. He looked at the papers and thought about everything that had happened since he'd signed them. Then he shredded them. "What are you doing?" His lawyer looked panicked. "Ending the contract, voiding the terms, all of it. But the shipping routes, the territorial agreements, are mine regardless of whether I'm married to her. I don't need a contract to keep what I built." Dominic stood. "Send dissolution papers. Make it clean." "You're divorcing her?" "I'm giving her the choice. She never had one before. Now she does." He went home that night with the dissolution papers, found Serafina grading papers at the kitchen table. She looked up when he entered. "You look serious. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, but we need to talk." He set the papers down. "Our marriage contract came up for review. I dissolved it." Her face went pale. You want a divorce?" "No, I'm giving you the option. The contract that forced you into this marriage no longer exists. You can leave if you want. No obligations, no consequences. Your sisters will still be protected, you'll still be provided for, but you'll be free." Serafina stared at the papers like they might explode. "Why would you do this?" "Because you never had a choice. Your father forced you into this marriage, and even though we've made it into something better, it was never your decision. Now it can be. You can choose to stay or choose to leave, but either way, it's your choice. And if I leave, then you leave. I'm not going to stop you. I'm not going to make it difficult. You deserve the freedom to decide your own life." She picked up the papers, read through them slowly. Dominic watched her process what he was offering, saw the war happening behind her eyes. Finally, she set them down. "I'm not signing these. Serafina, I'm not signing them because I don't want a divorce. I want to stay. Not because a contract says I have to, but because I'm choosing to. Because this thing we've built matters to me. Because you matter to me." She stood, moved around the table to face him. "I love you. I don't know when it happened exactly, probably somewhere between you destroying my father and you showing mercy to Tommy Ricci. But I do. I love you, and I want to stay married to you. Not because I'm trapped, but because I'm choosing it." Dominic felt something in his chest crack open, some final wall he'd been maintaining falling away. "I love you too. I don't know how to do it right. I'll probably mess it up constantly, but I love you. More than I thought I was capable of loving anyone." She kissed him then, for the first time. Not the obligatory brush at their wedding, but a real kiss. A choice. He kissed her back, careful and reverent, like she was something precious instead of something owned. When they pulled apart, she was crying. Happy tears this time, not afraid or sad. "So we're doing this? Actually doing this? Choosing each other? If you'll have me, even though I'm still dangerous and violent and probably always will be to some degree. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for you, all of you. The terrible parts and the trying to be better parts. That's what I want." then that's what you get. They stood in the kitchen surrounded by graded papers and dissolution documents that would never be signed. Two people who'd started as a transaction and somehow become real. It wasn't the story anyone would have predicted, wasn't romantic in any traditional sense, but it was theirs, messy and complicated, and built on honesty instead of illusion. That night, for the first time since their wedding, Serafina didn't go to her separate bedroom. She took Dominic's hand and led him to his room, their room now, and what happened there was gentle and slow and full of the trust they'd spent a year building. It wasn't perfect. She still had moments of fear. He still had to remind himself to be careful. But it was real and chosen, and that made it worth more than perfection ever could. Afterward, lying in the dark with her head on his chest, Serafina spoke into the silence.
Do you ever regret it? The marriage contract? The way we started? Dominic thought about it honestly. I regret what it cost you. The fear, the loss of choice, everything your father put you through. But I don't regret where it brought us. Because I never would have found this otherwise. Never would have found you. Me neither. As terrible as it was, I can't regret it because it made me into someone stronger. Someone who knows what they want and how to fight for it.
Someone who can love a complicated, dangerous man and not lose themselves in the process. Is that what you're doing? Loving a dangerous man? That's exactly what I'm doing. And you're loving a woman who's learned to be dangerous too. We're good at that, making each other stronger instead of weaker. Yeah, we are. They fell asleep tangled together, and for the first time since the wedding night, both of them slept peacefully. No nightmares, no fear, just the quiet comfort of two people who'd chosen each other despite everything. The years that followed weren't easy. Dominic's past caught up with them sometimes. Old enemies, old debts, the constant threat that came with the life he'd built. But they faced it together. Serafina learned to navigate his world with the same determination she brought to teaching. He learned to prioritize her safety and happiness over power and control. They fought, made up, fought again, learned each other's boundaries and limits and how to communicate when things got hard. Emma and Sophie grew up protected and loved, never knowing the full extent of what their brother-in-law did or what their father had tried to do. They just knew that Serafina was happy, that Dominic treated them like family, that they were safe in ways they'd never been before. Dominic gradually transformed his empire into something that could almost be called legitimate. Not entirely, some stains never fully washed out, but enough that he could sleep at night. Enough that when Serafina looked at him, she saw someone trying to be better instead of someone reveling in destruction. On their 5th anniversary, Dominic took Serafina back to the park where they'd sat after her father's funeral. They sat on the same bench, watching the river, 5 years older and infinitely changed. Do you remember what we talked about here? Serafina asked. You asked if I'd walk away, start over somewhere new. Would you? Now? Dominic considered. No, not anymore. This is our life, complicated and imperfect, and sometimes dangerous, but ours. I don't want to run from it. I want to keep building it into something better. Me too. She leaned against him, comfortable in a way she never could have imagined that first terrifying night. We did okay, didn't we, for two people who started as a business deal? We did better than okay. We built something real out of something terrible. That's not nothing. No, that's everything. They sat until sunset, just like they had 5 years ago. But this time when they left, they went home together. Not to a cage or a prison or an obligation, but to a life they'd chosen. To a marriage that had started with a contract and become something that transcended any legal document. It wasn't the fairy tale ending. There was no magical transformation, no perfect happiness. Just two imperfect people who'd learned how to love each other despite the darkness they'd both survived. Who'd taken a transaction built on fear and sacrifice and transformed it into partnership built on choice and trust. And in a world that dealt in power and violence and broken promises, that transformation was the most radical thing they could have done. Dominic Varelli had spent his life believing that strength was all that mattered, that mercy was weakness, that caring about people made you vulnerable. Serafina Vale had spent her life believing she had no worth beyond what others needed from her, that survival meant erasure, that love meant sacrifice. They'd both been wrong. And finding each other had taught them that the strongest thing they could do was choose to be vulnerable, that mercy took more courage than violence, that real love meant seeing someone completely, all their terrible parts and all their trying, and choosing them anyway. The marriage contract that had started everything sat destroyed in a file somewhere, its power dissolved. But the marriage itself remained, stronger for being chosen than it ever could have been when it was forced. And that choice, renewed every day in small ways and big ones, was worth more than any contract ever could be.